You're watching part 2, which is also the last part of our Twitch clone tutorial. Before you continue with this project, make sure that you did part 1 first. Everything that you just saw in the demo is going to be covered in this free tutorial. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to have part 1 and part 2 both for free uploaded on the channel. That being said, if 14 hours of content is still not enough for you and you want to learn more, or if you want to donate to my channel, you can use the link in the description and look at this content where it says want to learn more. And in here, you can unlock it for a price and get all of these features and everything else that I put here in the future. Now let's go ahead and let's create the settings for our keys, right? So when I click here, currently it's A404 and my URL is /u, my username, and then keys. And again, you can confirm this as well by going inside of your username components. So inside of the dashboard, username components, sidebar, navigation, and confirm that you have the same href as I do here. Great, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go inside of the app, browse username, and just as we created the chat folder, we're now going to create the keys folder, like that. And inside, go ahead and create page.tsx. Let's go ahead and write keys page, and let's return a div keys page. And now when you go ahead and try and clicking on the keys in your sidebar, you should no longer be getting A404. Instead, it should say keys page, like this. Now let's go ahead and style this to show our label here. So I'm going to give this div a class name of padding 6. I'm going to go ahead and open a div with a class name flex items center, justify between, and margin bottom of 4. I'm going to write an h1 element, keys and URLs, and give it a class name of text 2XL and font bold. And below that, I'm going to add a little button component, which is just going to say generate like this, and give it a variant of primary. Like that. So you should have a screen similar to this. For now, this generate button isn't going to do anything. We're going to come back to that later. And now below that, I want to go ahead and create a div with a class name of space y4. And inside, I'm first going to render the URL card like that. So if you save, you're going to get an error because URL card does not exist. So let's go inside of keys, create a folder underscore components, and inside create a new file, url-card.tsx. Let's go ahead and let's export const URL card here. And let's return a div saying URL card. So very simple like this. Let's go back inside and let's import URL card from /_components URL card. And now I want to go ahead back inside of my keys page and I want to turn this into an asynchronous function so that I can load my stream settings. So let's get self from await get self. So import that from the auth service. And let's get the stream from await get stream by user ID self.id. Like that. And I'm just going to move this to here. Let's go ahead and do if there is no stream, throw new error, stream not found. All right, and now we can go ahead and pass some props here. So let's go ahead and pass in the value of the URL card to be stream.server URL, which is one of our properties in here. So we're going to use this to generate the ingress ID, server URL, and stream key. So these three values, that's what's going to be controlled with this page. So now we have to enable the URL card to accept these props. So let's go inside of the URL card here, and let's go ahead and create an interface URL card props to accept a value, which can be a string or null. And let's go ahead and assign the props, URL card props here. Let's extract the value like this. And let's go ahead and give this div a class name of rounded, extra large, BG muted, and padding of 6, like this. Then inside, let's open up a new div with a class name, flex items center, and gap x of 10. Let's open a paragraph and write server URL and a class name of font semi-bold and shrink 0, like that. And then outside of this div, open up a new div. My apologies, not inside of this div, inside of this div. So just below the paragraph here, open a new div with a class name space y2 and width full. And let's go ahead and add a new div with a class name of width full, flex item center, and gap x of 2. And then inside, I'm going to go ahead and render the input. So make sure you import input from components UI input here. And let's give it a value of value or an empty string like that. Let's give it a property disabled. So we're going to hard code it because this is not going to be something user will be able to change. This will be generated using this generate button. So from here, they're only going to be able to see it and copy it. And let's write a placeholder server URL if user has not generated anything yet. So now this should look like this. You should have the server URL and you should have a huge input here which says server URL. So now what I want to do is create a little button here on the side which will copy whatever value is inside, so we enable our users to do that more easily. So for that, what I'm going to do is go below the input and add copy button, which we don't have yet, but we're going to create in a second, and pass in the value to be either a value or an empty string like this. And now let's go ahead inside of this underscore components and create a new file, copy button.tsx, like that. Let's mark it as use client because it's going to be interactive. Let's create an interface, copy client props. Let's pass in the value to be an optional string, and let's export const copy button here, like this, and just return a div copy button. And let's go ahead and assign the props, copy, not copy client, my apologies, copy button props, right? And value. And now go back to the URL card and you can now import this. And I'm just going to separate the imports. All right. And now inside of here, let's go ahead and modify this a little bit. So I want this to be a button component. So import components UI button. And inside of it, I want to go ahead and render my icon, right? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and add a state is copied and set is copied to be use state false by default. So make sure you import use state from React. So it's going to change the icon when we click on it, right? So it indicates to the user that it's copied. So then what I'm going to do is write const on copy. If there is no value, we're just going to break the function, right? There's nothing to copy. And then otherwise, I'm going to do set is copied to be true. I'm going to do navigator.clipboard.write text and pass in the value. And then I'm going to do the set timeout so that new icon, which will indicate to the user that we copied something, will only show for 1 second, and then do set is copied false like that. So it indicates to the user, okay, you copied this, and we're gonna disable the button during that time as well so they don't spam. And now let's create our dynamic icon variable. So if is copied, it's gonna use check icon from Lucid React. So make sure you import check from Lucid React. And otherwise, it's gonna use the copy icon from Lucid React. So just make sure you have both of those here. And then inside of here, we can simply render that icon constant from above and give it a class name of h4 and width of 4. And now give this button an onClick property of onCopy. Go ahead and give it a disabled property of if there is no value or if we have copied something. Sorry, not exclamation point here, so just or if we have copied it. And in here, give it a variant of ghost and a size of small. Like this. Great. So now you should have a nice little copy button at the end here, and it should be disabled because we have no value here. Great. So now let's go back inside of our page component, and below that, let's go ahead and let's render the key card component, which is also going to be having a stream.stream key like that. So now let's go ahead inside of components and create key card.tsx. Let's go ahead and mark this as use client, and let's do an interface key card props here to accept the value, which can be string or null. Let's do export const key card props. Let's return a div, and let's go ahead and assign the key card props value here. Extract the value. Go back inside of the keys page, and then you can import the key card from components key card. Great. And you can see that we have no errors when passing our value. So now let's go back inside of the key card and let's go ahead and develop this. So inside of this div, I'm going to go ahead and give it a class name of rounded extra large, BG muted, and padding of 6. Then inside, I'm going to open a div here with a class name of flex items start gap x 10. Then inside, I'm going to render a paragraph which says stream key, and give this paragraph a class name of font semi-bold and shrink 0. And then below that, I'm going to go ahead and open a div with a class name of space y2 and width of full. And then inside, open a div with a class name w full flex item center and gap x of 2. Let's go ahead and render our input component first inside. So make sure you import this. And inside, we're going to pass in the value to be the value or an empty string. The type is for now going to be password, right? We're going to change it dynamically later. It's going to be disabled, and placeholder is going to be stream key if it doesn't exist. Great. And below that, let's add our copy button, which you can import from /copy button. So we reuse it here as well, and pass in the value to be value or an empty string as well. Great. And now outside of this div, add a new button here. So make sure you import the button component like this. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to change this to, we're just going to say show like that, and give this a size of small and the variant of link like this. And now you should have this kind of a button here, which can indicate to show this stream key, because default is going to be hidden, right? So let's go ahead and create a little state for that. So I'm going to import use state from React. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and write show and set show, use state, default value is false, like that. Let's go ahead and give this button which says show an on click to toggle that. So go ahead and simply call set show to do the opposite of the current value. And now we can change this dynamically. So if we show it, the action is hide, otherwise it's show, like that. And then you can go ahead and try and click on this, and it should trigger between hide and show. And now what we have to do is use that value to change our input type from password to text, right? So we show that. So let's go ahead and simply use show text, otherwise password. Like that. Great. And we can try it out by going inside of our page here. And for now, change the value to 1234 for the key card. And why am I importing key card props? Whoops. My apologies. This is supposed to be key card, right? And then go back to the page and import key card. Like this. Great. And now if you try it, you can see how it's hidden. When you click show, it's right here. And you should also be able to copy that. There we go. So all of that is working great. And what we have to do now is this generate button, which is going to open a dialog. So before we go there, let's go ahead and bring this back to stream.server.stream key like that. And now let's go ahead and let's create our model. In order to do that, we first need to install a couple of packages from ShadCN UI. So I'm going to open my terminal here, and let me shut this down. And I will just write npx ShadCN UI at latest add dialog first. After the dialog, we're also going to have to add a select component. So add select. And we're also going to have to add an alert component. So make sure you have these three: dialog, select, and alert. And do npm run dev again and refresh your localhost. And now what we're going to do is we're going to place this button which says generate inside of our keys folder page.tsx to instead just render the connect model. So connect model like that. And if you save, you should get an error because it doesn't exist. So let's go inside of our underscore components here and create a new file, connect-model.tsx. And let's go ahead and mark this as use client. Let's export const connect model and just return a div connect model. Go back inside of the keys page and import the connect model from /connect model, and you can remove the button import like that. So now go back inside of the connect model and let's import everything we need from our dialog. So import from add/components UI dialog. So we are going to need the dialog itself, the dialog close, dialog content, dialog header, dialog title, and dialog trigger like this. And now let's go ahead and wrap our button inside of a dialog. So change this to be a dialog. Then inside of here, let's change this to be a dialog trigger. Let's give it an asChild property, and inside render a button component, which you can import from add/components UI button. And in here, we're going to say generate connection and give it a variant of primary like that. And there we go. Now you should have a button again here. And when we click on it, it's going to open a dialog. So let's go outside of the dialog trigger and let's add a dialog content here. Then let's add a dialog header, then a dialog title. And in here, write generate connection like this. And then when you go ahead and click on this button, it should open that model and it should say generate connection like this. Great. What we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and add a little alert here. So go outside. So first let's import everything we need from the alert, right? So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go ahead and import everything I need from add/components UI alert. And in here, let's import the alert description, the alert title, like that, title. Great, and now what I want to do is go outside of the dialog header, but still inside of the dialog content and render our alert here. And let's add alert triangle from Lucid React. So make sure you import alert triangle from Lucid React. I'm going to move it here. And let's give this a class name of h4 and width of 4. Then let's do alert title here and let's write warning. And then an alert description below, which is going to say this action will reset all active streams using the current connection. So we warn the user that if they decide for any reason to reset their connection keys, we're going to give them this warning to know that if they have an active stream going on, it's going to be shut down because the keys that they're using to connect to their streaming software are going to be reset and re-invalidated, right? Because the new ones will come in. So that's why we're going to give this warning if anyone is playing around with this so they know what they are doing. Great. And what I want to do now is add two buttons to generate or to cancel. So let's go outside of this alert, create a div with a class name of flex, justify between. And let's go ahead and add a dialog close here to be our button. Give it a variant of ghost. And inside render the cancel button. And then outside of that, another button, which is very simply going to say generate. And for now, let's give it an empty onClick function. And let's give it a variant of primary. Like this. And when you take a look at it now, you should be having these two buttons. Great. And now I just want to add the select component here. So I believe we don't have anything imported. So first let's go ahead and add everything we need from the select component here. So go ahead and import from add/components UI select and let's import select content, select item, select trigger, and select value. And just don't do this mistake as I did. Great. And what we're going to do now is render that just below our header, so above the alert here. So let's add the select right here. And what I'm going to select like this, and this one as well. And then inside, what I'm going to do is add a select trigger. I'm going to give it a class name of full width. I'm going to go ahead and add a select value inside with a placeholder ingress type, like that. And then I'm going to add a select content here. And each of those is going to have a select item, which is going to have a value of RTMP, like this. And it's not going to be a self-closing tag, so RTMP, like this. And the other one is going to be a WIP connection. So we're going to handle both protocols, RTMP and WIP, and you're going to see what they do later when we actually connect to a streaming service like that. And I believe that we should already be seeing this as our, there we go. You can see how we can select between the two of this now. Great. So the user will select what kind of connection they want. So RTMP is often used for streaming, right? For example, OBS accepts RTMP ingress type, so it can connect to that software. And WIP connections might be used for something else. So this way, we will allow all kinds of software to connect to our Next.js application, right? So it's going to be very modular. I believe we can even use some more popular, actually, I think OBS is the most popular streaming software because it's free and open source. But there are some others, which are maybe built into PlayStation and stuff. And I believe that they use the exact same protocols. But if they don't use this one, we also have this one, right? So it's going to be a very, very good streaming architecture for us here. Perfect. So we're going to stop for here now because I want to do the actual ingress creation in a separate module, so we have more time to talk about that and to explain it. So for now, we finished the UI for this, and then in the next part, we're gonna go ahead and actually, make this do something once we click the generate button. So what we have to do now is we have to connect to LiveKit so we can create our ingress. So go ahead and visit livekit.io or go ahead and use the link inside of the description. So this is real-time video and audio for developers, and it is an open source alternative to Twilio or some other stuff. And they include WebRTC and sockets inside. So if you want to, you can even self-host this, and they have great documentation on how to do that as well. So what I want you to do is go ahead and find the sign in button from here and go ahead and log in. Once you are inside of your dashboard, I'm not sure if you're going to see this exactly. Perhaps some project will be created for you, but what I'm going to do is go right here on the bottom and click create new project. And I'm going to give my app a name, Game Hub, which is our parody name, right? So let's go ahead and create this project here. And if you want to, you can go ahead and fill in this survey to help them know better about what you are doing. What we have to do now is we have to prepare some environment variables, right? So I'm going to go inside of my settings here, and in here you should have the keys option. And you also have webhooks, which we're going to do later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click add a new key here, and I'm going to call this development. And let's go ahead and click generate like this. And now you're going to get these items right here. So keep that open, don't close it yet. And instead, let's go ahead inside of our .environment file, and let's go all the way to the bottom right here, and let's add the following. So we need livekit _API URL, we need livekit _API key, and we need livekit _API secret, like this. So let's go ahead and let's fill in the API key from here. So I'm gonna give that here. Let's use the secret key right here. Let's use that and paste it here. like that. And this is the WebSocket URL. I'm not sure if we need this, or I think we actually need an API URL. So this is something else. So just make sure you added the API key and the secret key. And if it happened to you that you accidentally closed this, you're probably going to notice that you cannot see it again, the secret key, right? So you can just always click add a new key. It's not a big problem. So in order to find the LiveKit API URL, we can do that by going inside of the analytics here, and in here you can go ahead and copy this from your URL like this. So let's go ahead and put that here, and I believe we need to add HTTPS at the beginning like this. And I actually made a mistake previously when I told you that we don't need the WebSocket server. We do need that as well. So let's see if we can get that from the settings here. So I have my keys here. This is the development one. And in here we have the WebSocket URL. So let's go ahead and just copy this right here. And let's paste that in here as well. So no worries that we cannot see the secret, right? Because we can still see the WebSocket URL. So let's add next _ public _ livekit _ vs _ URL like this. So these three keys will be used privately, right? Because they don't have the next public prefix, but this one does, meaning that it can be used in the client, and it needs to be used in the client to initialize the WebSocket connection. But for these two, we can just leave them as they are. So make sure that you have the LiveKit API URL, which you can get by clicking on the analytics here, copying what you see here at the top, and I believe it's actually exactly the same as your WebSocket URL, as you can see, but it does need an HTTPS prefix right here. And inside of your settings here, you can get by clicking on the development. When we open this, you have the API key, and maybe we can click reveal secret. Looks like we can, right? So just make sure that you have both your API key and your secret inside. After you've done all of that, you can go ahead and close this. And if you want to, you can keep this open in your analytics, because we're going to come back to it later once we establish the connection, so we can see that it was properly established here. So what I want to do here is shut down my terminal and install a couple of packages. So we're going to need LiveKit components React. So make sure you install that package. Let's wait a second for this to install. So this is going to give us some set of useful client-side hooks and components. Then we're going to need npm install livekit client. So make sure you have that. And we're going to need npm install livekit-server-sdk like this. So make sure you have all of those installed. And now let's go ahead and let's go inside of our actions and create a new file, ingress.ts, like that. And mark this as use server, because this is a server action. And now let's go ahead and let's import everything we need from livekit server SDK. So we're going to need the ingress audio encoding preset, the ingress input. We're going to need the ingress client, the ingress video encoding preset, and room service client. Then we're also going to need to import track source from livekit server SDK. I believe, can we also import that from here? I believe we can. So we can just add it to this one like that. All right. And now what we have to do is import our database from /libdb. We have to import getSelf from auth service, and we have to import, well, that should be it for now. And now let's go ahead and create our room service. So const room service is going to be new room service client. And now we have to pass in 3 environment variables inside, which we have right here. So we're going to work with this 3, right? So let's go ahead and first pass in process.environment, the API URL, like that. And then in the other ones, for the second one, we're going to pass in the API key. And for the last one, we're going to pass the API secret, like that. And you can put exclamation points at the end of each of those to ensure, because we know that they exist, right? So now what I want to do is I want to create a create ingress action, which is going to be an asynchronous function. And what it's going to accept is the ingress type. So let's go ahead and give this a type of ingress type to be a type of ingress input, which we have imported from right here, from the live server SDK. And now inside of here, let's go ahead and let's write const self to be await get self. And then let's go ahead and write a little comment here to do reset previous ingress, like that. And now let's go ahead and write const options to be create ingress options. And let's go ahead and give some properties here. So the name is going to be self.username. The room name is going to be self.id. So anyone who joins our room is going to join our ID. That's how we're going to recognize which room the user wants to join. Now let's create a participant name, which is going to be self.username. And let's create the participant identity, which is going to be self.id. Great. And now we have to add some more options depending on whether we use the whip input or the RTMP input, right? And let's just see what exactly this error is. So it looks like I didn't import this. Let's go ahead and look at this, create ingress options. Oh, so we have to import type create ingress options from LiveKit server SDK. So make sure you have that as well, and then this error should go away. And now let's go ahead and let's write if ingress type is equal to ingress input dot whip input. Let's enable bypass transcoding. So options dot bypass transcoding is true. Else, so if it is the other protocol, we're going to use options.video to be an object which uses the source to be track source.camera, and preset is ingress video encoding preset dot and now we're gonna go ahead and use H.264 underscore 180p underscore 30 FPS underscore 3 layers, like that. And now let's go ahead and let's see what this is going on. So track source dot camera is not assignable to this. Let's see what did I do wrong here. I believe that you can import track source from one other place. Perhaps this was the wrong place to import it, or let's go ahead and try it like this. Let's import track source from LiveKit server SDK /dist /proto /livekit models, like that. So this is how it looks in one line. So let's try this now. And that seems to be working. So it looks like we have to import track source from that one specifically. In case it changes for you in the future, I'm sure that, well, it's going to be quite easy for you to look at the documentation to see. But if you're still getting errors, or if this doesn't exist for you, let me show you my package JSON so you can see what LiveKit versions I have. So my LiveKit components React are 1.4.2. My LiveKit client is 1.15.4. And my LiveKit server SDK is 1.2.7, like that. So if you want to, you can use the exact versions that I have, so you ensure that you can import this, right? But if you're not having any errors here, it means that it is working. Great, so we set the options for video, and now let's do options.audio here. So for the source, we're going to use track source.microphone. And for the preset, we're going to use ingress audio encoding preset dot opus stereo 96 kbps, like that. And now let's go ahead outside of this if clause, and let's create an ingress. So const ingress is await ingress client dot create ingress. Let's do ingress client. Do I have this ingress client imported? Oh, my apologies, I forgot to create the ingress client, right? So go below the room service here and create the ingress client, and that's going to be new ingress client with a capital I. So make sure you have this imported from here. So new ingress client, and inside pass process.environment, and we're going to use the LiveKit API URL like that and put an exclamation point at the end to get rid of the error. And now we have the ingress client like this. So let's go ahead and do ingress client.create ingress. And let's pass in the ingress type as the first argument, and let's pass in the options as the second argument. And then if we don't have an ingress created, or if there is no ingress.url, or if there is no ingress.stream key, in that case, throw new error, failed to create ingress. And now let's go ahead and do await db.stream.update, where we have a matching user ID from our self.id, and let's update the following data. Ingress ID is ingress.ingressID. Server URL is ingress.url, and the stream key is ingress.streamKey, like that. And now let's do revalidate path /u/self.username/keys. So that fields get updated once we do this, and let's return ingress itself. Great, so this is my ingress function. You can always visit the source code to see more information here. And one more thing I want to do is just finish this to reset previous ingresses. So we can do that now. So let's go ahead and just above the create ingress, let's also do export const reset ingress. Let's set ingresses, right? And do asynchronous function which accepts the host identity, which is a string, and all it's going to do is get all ingresses first. So ingresses is await ingress client dot list ingress, and passing the room name to be the host identity. And now let's get all the rooms. So const the rooms await room service dot list rooms, and pass in the host identity inside like this. And then let's do for const room of rooms await room service dot delete room, and pass in room dot name, right? So we cannot use for each or map here because await does not work in those functions, so we have to use the plain old for here. And let's write another one for const ingress of ingresses. Let's do if we have ingress.ingressID, meaning that it's the proper active ingress. In that case, await ingress client.delete ingress ingress.ingressID. Like this. Great. And now every time that the user tries to create a new ingress, we are going to ensure that we remove all instances. So await reset ingresses and pass in self.id. So we're going to remove all previous instances of active streams and rooms and ingresses which this user has. So that's why we have that warning here. When we click on generate connection, you can see that this is a warning which tells you that exactly that is going to happen. Great. And what I want to do now that we have this function here, which again, you can always double check by going directly inside of my GitHub source code, is go back inside of our app folder dashboard U username keys components connect model here. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and import a couple of stuff from LiveKit server SDK here. So let's go ahead and import ingress input from LiveKit server SDK like that. And then what I want to do is create the RTMP and whip functions here. So const rtmp is a string which comes from the ingress input dot rtmp input, and const whip is a string which comes from the ingress input dot whip input. And then let's do type ingress type to be type of rtmp or type of whip, like that. So now we're going to use this to create our functioning set state here. So let's go ahead and do the following. So I'm going to write const ingress type and set ingress type to be use state, which you can import from React. So just make sure you add that like this. And let's go ahead and let's give it a default value of rtmp. And let's go ahead and make sure to give it the ingress type here so it can accept both rtmp and whip protocols, like that. And now what I want to do is go down where we have our select function here, and let's change this hard-coded string to now use the actual rtmp string, which we stringified from the actual import of LiveKit, so we know it's correct. And here we do whip. And now let's go ahead and modify this select here to have a value of ingress type and give it an on value change to get the value, and then do set ingress type and passes in that value. And as you can see, we have no type errors because all of this is supported here. We have all the appropriate types for this. Great. So now what I want to do is I want to import use transition, and I want to import create ingress from actions ingress. So make sure you added those two. And now let's go ahead here and let's add const is pending and start transition from use transition, like that. And now let's create const on submit here, which is going to call start transition, and it's going to call that create ingress option with the value of ingress type, which we have inside of our store here. And let's go ahead and wrap this inside of parse integer like this. There we go. So no more type errors. Let's create a .then. Let's import toast from Sonar. So make sure you added this toast package here. And let's call toast. We're going to call ingress created like that. And we're going to go ahead and use the .catch here to write toast.error. Sorry, this was supposed to be toast.success. And this is an error, something went wrong. Like that. And now what we can do is, first of all, we can go ahead and add a disabled field to the input for is pending. And now we can go inside of our generate button and pass this on click to be on submit, and give it a property disabled of is pending as well. And one more thing I want to do is I want to close this model once that is finished. So for that, let's go ahead and let's add use ref from React. And now let's go in here where our state is. And before everything, I'm gonna add const close ref to be use ref with a default value of null. And the type of this ref is going to be element ref, which you can import from React. So make sure you add this as well. And specifically, we're going to target a button element like that. And now let's go ahead and assign this to our dialog close wrapper. So find the dialog close with the cancel button inside and give it a ref of close ref. Oh, and let's also give this as child property so we don't have any hydration errors for this. And then what I'm going to do is go inside of my function here, and I'm going to extend this .then to be a function like this. And after we do the toast message, I'm going to do close ref .current click like that. And if everything is done correctly, this should be working. So let's go ahead and do npm run dev. Make sure that you have this running on your local host here. And I'm also going to prepare my Prisma Studio. So I'm going to open a new terminal here and I'm going to write npx Prisma Studio. So that's going to open on localhost 5555. And I'm working with Antonio's stream. So what I expect that after I click generate, the Ingress ID should be populated, the server URL and the stream key. So let's go ahead and try that out. I will refresh here one more time. And let's go ahead and click generate connection. Let's choose RTMP and let's click generate and let's see if we did everything correctly. So it is generating and it says Ingress created. And as you can see, we have a server URL here and we have our stream key. If I check in my Prisma Studio here, you should see the exact same thing. There we go. Ingress ID, server URL, and stream key. And maybe we can even find something inside of the live kit. I believe we cannot because there are no active ingresses, right? So this will only appear once we actually connect to OBS or some streaming service. I think for now, we are not seeing any information about this. Yes, but once we connect, we are going to see some stuff. Great, so if this is working for you, amazing. You now know how to create an RTMP protocol using LiveKit, and now you can use this server URL and this stream key on literally any streaming service, right? So this is not, you are not locked in to any specific software. This will work with anything. Specifically, we're going to use OBS, which is the most popular streaming software and it's completely open source. But I believe that all other streaming services work in an exactly the same way. I mean, they do have to support this kind of protocols, which are the standard for live streaming. Great. So just ensure that you have this working and you can even try and reset this. So let's do it again. Let's go ahead and regenerate this. And this should give us a completely different stream key. I think that server URL might actually be the same, but the stream key should be different once you click generate connection. Great, so you finished that. What I'm going to show you next is how to use these two items to connect to the OBS software. So I'm going to give you a little crash course on OBS, and then we're finally going to be able to see some streaming, which we're going to develop in this tab here. Great, great job. Now is show you how to connect to OBS so we can confirm that this server URL and this stream key is correct and actually working. So for that, you're gonna have to learn a little bit about OBS, and the first step is to install OBS. So go ahead and Google OBS or go directly to obsproject.com and choose whatever is your machine. After you have done that, go ahead and open OBS, and I suppose if it's your first time, you're probably going to be seeing a black screen here, so you're not going to be seeing this cursor at all. So I'm going to quickly show you how to set up a scene and capture your desktop display, right? So go ahead in the lower left corner where you have the Scenes tab and click on the plus icon. And now go ahead and give your scene a name. So this is going to be OBS demo for me. For you, it can be whatever. Click OK. And now make sure this is selected. And now you can see I have a black screen as well. And now you have to add a source. So go in this second tab here and click on the plus icon. And go ahead and select whatever it is for you, which is in my place of Mac OS screen capture. So if you're on Mac, it's gonna write something like this. If you are on Windows, it might just write screen capture or Windows screen capture. So make sure you select that like this, and the name doesn't matter, just click OK. And now you go ahead and select your display monitor, right? So this is my MacBook and this is my external monitor. So just change these options until you can see your screen in this little box. And go ahead and click OK. Great, so if you have the same case that I do, and that's that the resolutions don't match, what you can do is just kind of drag this, and then you can see that you have these little points here where you can adjust it to fit the screen. So there we go, you can see how I can drag this and align it so it fits the entire screen. And there we go, this is my monitor. I am recording this, right? And now you can do the same thing to add your microphone if you want to. So you can click on this sources plus icon and then select audio input capture if you want to. So for now, I'm just gonna demonstrate how to do it on screen capture. You can Google OBS tutorial if you're really interested in this. And now I'm just quickly gonna go over these controls here. So what's important is that you set up your settings correctly. So in the general tab, it doesn't really matter what you do. What does matter is in the video tab. So in here, I recommend that you try and do this with 180 resolution, right? So this is my native resolution. 1440. And if you select one resolution here, make sure that you also select the same resolution for the output. So these two need to be the same. And if I change this resolution, for example, you can see how my canvas is now much higher, so I have to expand this so it fits the entire screen, right? So if you want to, you can use the exact same method in the video tab to lower your resolution. So that's going to be faster streaming and less problems because this is not some high quality, right? And then when you lower it, you have to go ahead and use these little red markers here to align it to your canvas like I'm doing right now. And then in my settings here, let me go ahead inside of the output here and make sure that you select output mode to be advanced like this. So you can see all these options that I have. And now the streaming tab is important for us because this is what's actually going to be sent to our ingress. So make sure you use an X264 video encoder like that. Make sure that your rescale output is not selected. And for the encoder settings, this is what I use. So my rate control is CBR and my bitrate is 3500 kbps like this. And this CPU says very fast. I don't know if that means anything to you, but if you want to, if you have the option, you can select it. If not, it doesn't matter. I don't believe it. And in the recording tab right here, my type is standard. This is my recording path. And this is my video encoder like this. So those are my options if you are interested in them. And what we have to do now is we have to copy the server URL and we have to go inside of the stream tab. And inside of service, make sure you select custom and then paste that inside of your server here. And then go ahead and copy the stream key and go ahead and paste it here like this. So make sure that what you have here matches what you have here. And that's it. Just click OK. And then in the controls tab, just click start streaming like this. And in a couple of seconds right here, you can see how I have my connection, and you can see that I'm sending some packets, meaning that we have successfully connected our OBS to our ingress. And you can confirm that by going inside of your LiveKit analytics and go inside of egress and ingress here. And I'm going to go ahead and refresh this a couple of times. And at one point, you're going to go ahead and see this go from inactive to publishing. And you're going to see the duration. So obviously I have some more here because I've been trying this off my screen, but you should probably only have one or two, right? And one of them should have a status of publishing, and I think you should only have one active session for it. So if you go ahead and refresh this a couple of times, you should be seeing the new duration, the new status and stuff like that. Great. And if you go ahead and stop your stream, it should stop successfully, right? And then when you refresh after a couple of seconds or minutes here, this is gonna go back to inactive, right? And then if you go ahead and generate your connection again, remember that you have to use the new stream key inside of your OBS Studio. Great, so I hope that kind of cleared it up, and you can see we successfully connected. We have some information about that here, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna finally use that connection to create our stream player and actually render our stream on this screen right here. So what I want to do now is I want to go back to our follow service and to our recommended service. So in here, if you remember, we have a property called isLive, and this is supposed to change every time the user successfully connects their OBS with our ingress, right? But if you remember what we do currently, let's go ahead and revisit that. So inside of our app, which I think it's browse components sidebar. So in here we have following and recommended, right? So let's check out recommended first. And in here we have the property is live and we manually set it to false. I want to change this now to use the stream model and the property we have in our Prisma schema. Here we have model stream and we have a property called is live. And right now this live cannot be triggered in any way, right? But so this is what we're going to do. First, we're going to revisit our follow service and our recommended service so that inside of this user object, we also include the relation with the stream for that user. And then we're going to go ahead and change this is live to use user.stream.isLive, right? And then what we have to do is create a webhook with LiveKit so that every time we connect to our ingress, this boolean changes from false to true. And also when the ingress ends, we want to change it back to false. So this is what I'm going to do first. Let's do the recommended service. So go inside of your lib folder and go inside of the recommended service here. And in here, go ahead and find the function get recommended. And in here, what I want to do first is go inside of this function where we are logged in, right? Where we have the user ID. So in here, we have a chain of some queries here to ensure that we are not blocking the user, that we are not following the user, and that we are not the user themselves. And now what I want to add is just above the order by, I want to add include stream to be true, like this. And I also want to do that right here in the else function where we load the users for logged out users. So also add include stream true here, like this. And now what I want to do is I want to go back inside of the recommended component. So inside of the app browse components sidebar. And if you take a look at my index here, so now we're loading the recommended here. And what you're going to see is that we now have the stream model inside, which means we have to modify our data prop for the recommended component. So go inside of the recommended component.tsx where we have hard-coded is live to false, and let's modify this to not just load the user, but also load the populated stream model. So I'm going to change this to use parentheses, and then I'm going to write user and then I'm going to open an object, stream, and stream is going to be the stream from Prisma client. So don't accidentally import it from the stream package, import it from Prisma client like this, or it's going to be null like that. Great. And now if you take a look in the sidebar index, you should be having no errors here. So that type should be supported. And then in the recommended in here, let's go ahead and change this to not use is live false. Instead, let's use user.stream, which we now have, !.isLive, like this. Great. And now I want to go ahead and do the same thing for the following service. So let's go ahead and close everything. Let's go inside of the lib folder and let's go inside of the follow service here. So find get followed users inside, and we only have to do that inside of the try block because inside of the catch we just return an empty array for logged out users. So in here we already include the following. So now let's go ahead and do this. Let's extend the following include, and let's also add another include inside stream to be true, like this. Great. So very simple modification for get followed users. We extended our following from just being true to an object which also includes the stream of that following. And now we have to go back inside of our app folder, browse components sidebar following right here, and we have to modify this prop as well. So it's no longer going to be just the user. Instead, it's going to be the following. So it's going to be the user and go ahead and open an object and write stream to be stream from Prisma client. So make sure you add stream from Prisma client or null like that. And if you want to, you can even collapse this. Let me go ahead and do that just so it's a bit more readable. Let me try it like this. There we go. I think this is a bit more readable. So we are wrapping all of this inside of parentheses because that's going to be an array, right? So we get the follow model, we include the following, and I think I should have indented this as well. There we go. And then the following is the type of user which has the stream included inside. Great. So make sure you add this. And now we can modify our user item here as well to use is live. And let's give it a property of follow.following dot stream question mark dot is live. Like that. Great. And nothing should change in the code now, right? Because both of these are not working. But what you can already do manually is go ahead and open your Prisma Studio if you want to. So npx Prisma Studio, right? And that should open it on localhost 5555. And now you have to find the stream of the user you can see in the recommended. So my user is Code with Antonio. So in my Prisma Studio, I'm looking at Code with Antonio's stream, and I'm going to manually change this value of is live to be true, like this. And I'm going to click Save One Change. And now what should happen is when I refresh here, this should stay live like this, right? Because now we're no longer hard coding that prop. Instead, we are using the is live property. And if you log out, you will also see it as live as well. Great. So what I want you to do now is go back inside of your Prisma Studio and just change this property back to false and click Save One Change like this. So we have the proper data inside of our database. What we have to do now is we have to spin up our ngrok local tunnel and we have to create a webhook with LiveKit. So just a quick reminder where you can find that. So go inside of ngrok, click on your Cloud Edge sidebar, domains right here, and in here you should have your domain. Click on the little terminal icon which says start a tunnel, and there we go, you have the URL from here. So you can do it this way, or you can simply run ngrok http 3000 and then use that new URL. But remember, you have to change it everywhere we are using it. So I'm going to shut down this for now, just so I can show you everything I have running. So I have running npm run dev, so we can do that together. So make sure you do npm run dev on localhost 3000, open a new terminal, and then paste this command which you just copied from ngrok like this, and make sure you change the port from 80 to 3000 like this. So this is one option you can do, just press enter and then you have your stable URL, and you don't have to change that from Clerk because remember, this doesn't change, right? Or you can do ngrok http 3000 if for any reason your domains are not working, and then you're going to get a randomly assigned URL. So just remember, you have to go ahead into Clerk webhooks and then change that to the new URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using this command which we just copied from the ngrok. So I have my stable webhook URL. Make sure you're doing it on port 3000 and not 80. So make sure you change that part of the command. Great. And now what I want to do is just confirm in my URL that this will render my localhost 3000, and it seems to be working. Great. So what I want to do now is go inside of my LiveKit here, and let's go inside of the settings and let's click on webhooks right here. And let's go ahead and click add new endpoint like that. And I'm going to call this development as well. And let's go ahead and paste this. And then what we have to do is go add to this URL to go to /API/webhooks/LiveKit. So this is very important that you add this part because that's where we are going to create our webhook, right? And then in designing API key, it is important that you select the one you created when we were setting up LiveKit. So don't choose the default one. We created together a new one, if you remember, and we called it development. So make sure that one is selected. And then just click create. And that's it. Nothing else you have to do here. And now we are ready to create our webhook. So let's go ahead and create the appropriate URL for that. So I want to go inside of my app folder, inside of API, and in here we have webhooks. So inside of this folder, create a new folder called LiveKit, like this. And inside, simply create route.ts file. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's import headers from next/headers. Let's go ahead and import webhook receiver from LiveKit server SDK. Let's go ahead and import our database from /lib database. And now let's set up our receiver. So const receiver is new webhook receiver, which accepts process.environment.livekit_API key and process.environment.livekit_API secret, and make sure to add exclamation points at the end. And double check that you actually have those in your .environment file. So you should copy the LiveKit API key, paste it here to ensure you don't have any typos, and do the same thing with the secret. So LiveKit API secret, and add it here, and they should match. Great. Now let's do export asynchronous function post, which accepts the request, which is a type of request. Let's get the body using await request in a form of text, so our webhook can process this. Let's get our header payload. So const header payload is headers. And now let's get the authorization from the headers. So header payload.get authorization with capital I, like this. If there is no authorization header, we're gonna go ahead and actually return new response, which is going to say no authorization header, and let's pass in a status of 400, meaning that we cannot proceed with this webhook. And now let's get the event which was passed. So event is receiver.receive, pass in the body in form of text here, and authorization, so we can confirm that the LiveKit has access to this webhook, right? And then we can simply check which event was fired. So if event.event is equal to ingress_ended, like that, let's do await db stream update where, and we're going to find the stream using our ingress ID. So that's why we added that in our schema Prisma. Our stream model has the ingress ID, and inside of our ingress action, when we create an ingress, you can see right here that we make sure to assign the ingress.id, right? So make sure you do this now. So we're going to find the stream using the ingress. So go back inside of your LiveKit webhook, right? And in here, we're going to write ingress ID is event.ingressinfo ?.ingress_id, like that. And then let's add data is live to be false, right? So when the ingress ends, we turn it back to false, like this. And now let's go ahead and let's add a new one here. So this is for ended. You can easily copy and paste this and change this one to be if event.event is ingress started, like this. The where query is exactly the same, but the data changes from isLive false to isLive true, like this. Great. And one more thing that I want you to confirm is that inside of your middleware, you have this route in your public routes, so the webhook can be received without authentication from Clerk. Great. And now what should happen is that you should be able to go inside of your OBS studio. So let me just go ahead back to localhost 3000 here and ensure that you have both your terminal running using the npm run dev and also the ngrok with the URL which you just passed to LiveKit. Go inside of your creator page here and go inside of the keys, and in here go ahead and make sure that you have those in OBS and click start streaming. So I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to do that. I am recording currently with my OBS, but I'm still going to try and stream as well. So I will just confirm that I have the correct stream key inside of my OBS settings here. So inside of my stream, looks like I have the correct key, and I'm going to click start streaming like this, and let's see if that's going to successfully connect. There we go, I have a successful connection. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out, right? Because we cannot see ourselves in this sidebar. So let's go ahead and log out, and there we go. You can see that it says that I am live, right? I can refresh and it still says that I am live. So our webhook is working. And now what I'm going to try is click stop streaming in the OBS. And now when I refresh here, maybe not instantly, but after a couple of seconds, it should go back to offline. Great, so make sure you just refresh a couple of times. It could be cache, it could be a bit of a late webhook, but this is fine. Other streaming services also have a bit of a delay. Sometimes it says that the stream is active and then you click on it and then it says it's offline, right? So this is perfectly fine. Great, so our webhook is officially working, and you can also double check this by opening up MPX Prisma Studio here and just ensure inside of your stream. Right now both of my streams is live is false, but if I go and click start streaming in my OBS Studio, in a couple of seconds one of them should be true, and there we go. You can see that the first one is live is true, and if I go ahead and click stop streaming, then after a couple of refreshes I believe it should change to false, so it's still true. Let's try again. Let me scroll here one more time. Let's hope this is the one. And there we go. Now is live is false. Great, so you successfully connected the webhook with your LiveKit, and you can see how almost in real time it works, and it's a great experience for your users so they can see what's going on in the page here. Perfect, so we now have control over the is live property, and what we're gonna go ahead and do now is finally create the interface where other users will be able to look at the live stream and chat in real time. Great job. So before we go on and create the actual stream player, I want to point out one thing that I've noticed while looking back at our previous module, and that is that inside of our lib folder, specifically our follow service and our recommended service, we include the entire stream. And what we do then is we pass that to a client component. So inside of this sidebar by itself is a server component. So this is secure, right? But then we pass the entire data to client components, right? So this stream model could technically be visible inside of a JavaScript bundle, right? I don't have the skills to extract that, but I'm pretty sure there are some malicious users, or maybe just white hat hackers who do this for a living, who could point out this mistake for us. So this is what I want to do instead. I don't want to pass the entire stream model, because in our schema, our stream model has some pretty sensitive information here, which could be used by other users. So I'm going to try and fix that by first going inside of the recommended service. And instead of just plainly doing include stream true, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this and use select and just write is live to be true. Like this, because that's the only piece of information we need, and it's not malicious or harmful to send this to the client. And let's modify the same thing in the else clause here. So instead of stream true, let's do select is live true, like this. And now let's go back inside of our sidebar index, and I believe we should now be having an error here for our recommended data. So let's go inside of the recommended field here, and I'm gonna go ahead and modify this to not be a stream entirely, instead just is live, which is a boolean. And I think that's going to fix the TypeScript error. As you can see, it fixed it for me, right? So this is now working, and our code is also working like that. Great, so let's do the same thing inside of the follow service. So go inside of the follow service here, and in here in the get followed users, we do the same thing. We include the entire stream, right? But we are passing some sensitive information to the client. So instead, let's change this to be select is live true. Like that. And then we have to go back inside of our sidebar index where we now have the TypeScript error and fix the following component. So go inside of following, and let's change the stream to not be the entire object, instead just is live boolean. And now you can remove the stream from your imports in the following component and in the recommended component like this. Great, so I believe that now this should still be working. So you can go ahead and start the stream if you want, but let me just do that. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and click start streaming. So I just clicked it in my other browser, right? You have the previous two modules where I showed you how to start your stream. So just go into OBS and click start streaming, and there we go. It's still working. And now I'm going to click stop streaming, and I believe that after a couple of refreshes here, it should go back to offline. Let's go ahead and wait for it. Oh, there we go. Okay. Great, so we fixed that little security issue that we have, and now our code is secure because we are not including the sensitive information like ingress ID, server URL, and stream key. Great. So now that we resolved that, what I want to do is I want to go inside of my app folder, browse username, sorry, not browse, my apologies, dashboard username, and homepage.tsx. So right now all we do here is we have the creator page, right? Well, instead of that, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and render the following. So let's go ahead and do a class name here, and let's do h-full like that. And then what I want to do is I want to ensure that whoever is visiting this page is the proper user. So let's mark this as an asynchronous page here. And let's add the interface to accept this username prop from the URL. So interface creator page props will have params, and those params have the username, which is a string. And we know it has a username exactly because that's what we named this folder, which is encapsulating this. Then we can go ahead and assign those props, so creator page props, and we can extract the params. And then let's go ahead and do const external user to be await current user from clerk next.js. So make sure you add this import. And then let's go ahead and write const user to be await get user by username from lib user service. So we already have that created. If you don't, make sure you create the user service and add this, even though you should be having it because we created this together. But just in case you somehow missed it, you can either code it right here or go inside of my GitHub. And let's do get by username, params.username, like that. And now let's do if there is no user, or if user.external user ID does not match the external user (.id), or if there is no user.stream. So if any of those cases happen, we're going to throw new error unauthorized, like that. And you should probably be getting this error for the user stream, and I think that's because we have to include the stream from this get user by username service. So let's go ahead and click here, get user by username service, and let's add include here stream to be true, like that. And there we go. Now we don't have that error. Perfect. So we're going to need the entire stream object for this one, because this, you can see that we are going to redirect immediately if the user who this stream does not belong to is trying to load this page. So we don't have to worry about security on this part because this will handle that for us. And instead what we can do here is render a component stream player, which is going to be a self-closing tag. And of course, it does not exist yet, but it is going to exist in a second. And let's go ahead and do the following. Let's pass in the user to be user, stream to be user.stream, like that. And now we have to go ahead and create the stream player component. And the good thing about this component is that we're going to create it once, and then we're going to reuse it both in the creator dashboard and also in the viewer browse page. So the place for that component is inside of our components folder. So inside of here, create stream-player.tsx like this. And let's go ahead and mark this as use client. Let's export const stream player, and let's return a div stream player. Now go back inside of your dashboard username homepage here and import stream player from as/components stream player, like that. Now what I'm going to do is log in and go to my creator dashboard so that we can actually see this text. All right, so make sure you click on the little clapperboard icon in the navbar and you should be seeing the text stream player. And now what we have to do is we have to create an interface to accept those props, which we've written right here. So let's create an interface stream player props. User is going to be a type of user from Prisma client, which is going to have stream, which is a type of stream from Prisma client, like that, or null, like this. And let's also go ahead and include stream itself as a prop. We already have stream imported from above. And let's do is following to be a Boolean like that. And here's the thing. So, well, let's go ahead and assign this. So stream player props like that, and go back inside of this page, and you can see we still have an error. That's because we are missing the is following prop. So in the viewer page, is following is going to be dynamic, right? We're going to use that server. We have the following service, so we're going to simply use that constant is following. But in this case, this is our creator dashboard, so we already know that this is going to be our stream. So what we can do is we can just hard code this like this, or you can pass in true explicitly if you like it more that way. So I'm going to use this method, and as you can see, we no longer have any errors inside of our stream player. Great, so now let's go ahead and let's extract this. So user stream and is following from the props here. And what we have to do now is we have to create a hook called use viewer token, right? So I'm going to go ahead. Well, I'm not going to write anything here. Instead, let's go ahead and create, so just save this file stream player. We're going to create a new folder on the root of our application called hooks. And then inside, I'm going to create a new file, use viewer token.ts. So this is going to be a hook, which is going to be used to create the identity of the user that is trying to watch our stream. So for that, we're going to need to install a package. So this is what I have running. I have running my npm run dev, that's this right here, and I have running my ngrok here. And this is my other terminal where I'm simply gonna write npm install jvt decode. So make sure you install this package. And now let's go ahead and let's import everything we need. So we need toast from Sonar. We need use effect and use state from React. And we need JVT payload and JVT decode from JVT decode. So JVT payload starts with a capital J because it is a interface, and this is a function, so it starts with a lowercase. Make sure you don't do the mistake in the imports here. And now let's do export const use viewer token to accept the host identity, which is a string. And now let's create states for the token and set token to be use state and empty by default. Let's do the same thing for name and set name to be use state and empty by default. And let's create the identity and set identity from use state like this. Great. And what we have to do now is we have to create our use effect hook, which is going to run once and create and fill out this information. So using this information, we're going to have info of who is watching the stream, what is their token, what is their identity, what is their name. And using those information, we're later going to be able to kick users, or even further, if you want to develop these applications, you can grant them some additional permissions like joining the stream, right? So that's why we need this information here. And host identity prop is going to be the identity of the streamer we are trying to watch, right? So that's going to be their ID. So let's go ahead and do const create token to be an asynchronous function like this. And let's go ahead and open a try and catch block. And what we have to do in here, so let me just go to catch here, and I'm going to very simply do toast.error. Something went wrong. So in case we are not able to create the token. And what we're going to do here is do const viewer token to be await create viewer token. But we don't have this function yet, so we have to go ahead and create it. So let's go inside of our actions. So there's going to be a server action, and let's create a new file token.ts inside of our actions. So just leave this error like this for now, because we're now going to create that function. Since this is an action, mark it as use server. And go ahead and we have to install a package called UUID. So let's do npm install UUID like that. And let's see if it comes with the types. So import v4 from UUID, and it doesn't have the types. So let's go ahead and do the following. We're going to do npm install -d add types /UUID like that. So make sure you add that. And now this error should go away and you should have the types. Great. And now let's import access token from LiveKit server SDK. Let's go ahead and import getSelf from libauth service let's go ahead and import get user by, oh, we only have get user by username. So we have to go back inside of our user service and we have to create get user by ID, right? So this should be get user by ID. So leave this token as it is for now. And we have to go back inside of our lib, inside of the user service. My apologies for not doing this beforehand. And let's just go ahead and write export const get user by ID to be an asynchronous function which accepts the ID, which is a string, and simply gets the user using await database user find unique, where we have a matching ID, and let's also add include stream to be true. So a very simple function here, and let's return the user. That's it. That's our new function inside of the user service where we already have get user by username. And now we can go back inside of our actions token.ts, and instead of importing this, we can now import get user by ID like that, because we're going to pass in the host identity, which is their ID. And let's do export const create viewer token asynchronous function, which is trying to connect to host identity, which is going to be the ID of the user, which is who is streaming. And now in here, first, let's try and see if the user that is trying to watch this stream is logged in or logged out, because we're going to allow guests. So let's do let self, and then let's open a try and catch block. Inside of try, let's attempt to assign await get self to the self constant. Else, if this function fails, meaning we are not logged in, we're going to create a mock ID. So const ID is going to be equal to v4 from UUID. So that's going to create the guest ID. And then what we're going to do is const username is going to be guest, and then add a little hashtag here. And then we're simply going to use math.floor math.random times 1000, right? So we're going to generate a random guest ID. So it's going to be something like guest 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. That's going to be the random username of the guest that is joining. And then we can do self is an object which has the ID and the username. So this way we handled logged out users. Great. And now let's find the host who is streaming. So const host is equal to await get user by ID host identity, like that. And then if there is no host using this identity, we're going to throw new error, user not found. Then let's check if we are blocked from watching this stream. So let's do const is blocked, we await is blocked by user, which you can import from our block service. We already did that when we implemented the blocking functionality. So we're going to check if this host has blocked us. If it did, we're not going to be able to create the token. So if we are blocked from watching this user, we are simply going to throw new error, user is blocked. And what that's going to do inside of our hooks, inside of the use viewer token, is going to go inside of the catch and just simply throw an error. Something went wrong. You cannot watch this user, right? So go back inside of your actions folder inside of the token here. And now let's go further. So let's check if the host themselves is trying to watch this. So we're going to write const is host self.id is equal to host.id. Like that. And then let's go ahead and finally create the access token to watch this stream with all of this information that we have. So const token is new access token, which we have imported from LiveKit server SDK, right? And let's pass in process.environment.livekit_API_key and process.environment.livekit_API_secret. And as always, double check that you passed this correctly from your environment file, right? So you should have the LiveKit API key copied from here and pasted here, and you should have the LiveKit API secret copied from here and pasted here. And if you want to, you can even add this exclamation points at the end if you're having any errors here. Great, and now we're gonna add some configuration for the access token. So that's gonna be the identity. So if is host, we have to modify the identity a little bit, because in our action to create the ingress, we already have in here, you can see that we already have the participant identity to be our ID. So we cannot have same ID twice in one live stream. So we're gonna have to modify the identity inside of the token action here if the host is watching. So we're simply gonna add a little prefix here, host self.id, otherwise self.id. Very simple. And then name is gonna be self.username. So that's either gonna be the currently logged in user, right? Or this randomly generated guest username. Great. And finally, now we are ready to add some permissions to this token. So token.add_grant room they're trying to join is going to be host.id. Room join field is going to be true. Can publish is going to be false. And can publish data is going to be true. Like that. And all we have to do now is return await promise resolve token dot to JVT, like that. Great, there we go. We now have create viewer token, and what we can do now is we can head back inside of our hooks, use viewer token here, and we can import create viewer token from actions token. So make sure you add this new import here. So we are back inside of our hooks use viewer hook here. And what we have to do inside is pass the host identity where we are trying to join. And then once we have the viewer token, let's simply do set token to be viewer token. So that's going to be the entire JVT token. And now we're going to decode it. So decoded token to be JVT decode, which we imported from this package right here. So JVT decode, pass in the viewer token, and let's write as JVT payload and open an object and write name to be an optional property, which is a string. So let me zoom out so you can see it in one line. So decoded token is JVT decode as JVT payload and an object with an optional property of name, which is a string. So make sure you have JVT payload and JVT decode imported from the same package. And now that we have our decoded token, let's check, let's extract the name, which is decoded token (name), and let's get the identity, which is decoded token (. Actually, it's not question mark, it definitely exists, but it is under .jte, like that. If we have the identity, let's simply do set identity to the constant. And if we have name, let's go ahead and set the name to the name. Like that. Perfect. And what we have to do now inside of the use effect is actually call this create token function. So go where it ends here and simply do create token like this. And what we have to put inside of the dependency array is host identity. And then we have to return something from this hook. So let's go ahead and return token, name, and identity like this. Great. So now we have our use viewer token here, and now we are ready to add this inside of our stream player component. So let's go inside of the components folder and find the stream player here, and let's go ahead and do const use viewer token, which you can import from hooks use viewer token, and inside we're going to pass in user.id like that. And then from use viewer token, we can extract the token, name, and the identity. So all of this is the information of the person that is trying to watch the stream that this user is currently streaming. And then what we can do is if we have no token, or if we have no name, or if we have no identity, let's go ahead and let's return a div saying cannot watch the stream like this. And let's go ahead inside of here and we're gonna watch allowed to watch the stream like this. And now if you go ahead and refresh here, at first you should have cannot watch the stream, and then you're going to get allowed to watch the stream, right? Because what we're doing is we are firing this use viewer token here, and in here we're calling a server action, right? So make sure that you added use server here at the top, and in here we are doing all of that necessary information to create the identity of the person that is trying to watch. And then finally, inside of our stream player, if we receive the token, the name, and the identity, it means that we have all the information we need to give this user access to the stream. Great. So just make sure that when you refresh for a second, you should have cannot watch the stream, and then it should change to allowed to watch the stream. If you're having any issues here, you can go ahead and add a console log here and log the token, the name, and the identity here. And then just go ahead and look at them inside of your inspect element, and all of them should be filled. And if one of them is not filled, that's how you can debug. So now you know if something is missing, right? So you can go ahead and trace your steps back in the use viewer token, for example, and add some console logs here, for example, log the name and identity, see if this function fires, see if this function fires, right? So that's only if you're having any issues with this. If it's working, great, no need to modify anything. Perfect, so we did that, and what we're gonna do next in the stream player is we're gonna go ahead and start to style this. Primarily, we're gonna go ahead and create our video component, which is going to render the connecting status, the offline status of the streamer, and the actual video status of the streamer. So now I want to go ahead and I want to create the first component in this allowed to watch stream, which is going to be the video component. So in here, we're going to have a loading state, we're going to have an offline state if the user is not streaming, and finally, we're going to have the actual live stream. So in order to do that, I want to do the following. First thing, I want to replace this with an empty fragment like this. And then I want to go ahead and I want to import LiveKit room from @livekit/components-react. So let me show you my package JSON. This is my version. If you're wondering, if you have a higher version, it doesn't mean that it will not work. It can definitely work, right? But in case you run into some issues, just so you know, this is the exact version I have, so you can always use that one if you're having any problems. Great, so now what we have to do is we have to render that LiveKit room. So let's do LiveKit room like this, and let's open it up like this, and inside I'm going to write stream like this. And now we have to go ahead and pass in some props here. So let's go ahead and let's pass in the token to be token, which we get from our use viewer token hook right here. That's why we need to check if we have it. Then let's go ahead and pass in the server URL, which is going to be process.environment.next_public_livekit_vs_URL. And as always, just double check inside of your .environment file that you have this property right here. You can go ahead and find it. Well, it's actually exactly the same as your LiveKit URL. As you can see, it's exactly the same. The only difference is that instead of HTTPS, you use VSS like this. So just make sure you have next public LiveKit VS URL. You can also find it in the LiveKit config page. Just go into your settings into API keys and paste that here. So make sure that this is correct like that. And now this is what I have. I have a little error here, which says that attempted import error, local participant is not exported from LiveKit client. So they have an open issue about this error, and it's actually not a LiveKit issue, it's a Next.js issue when it comes to this .mjs extensions. And thankfully there is a fix for it. So if you're not having this error, in that case, Next.js has updated and they fixed that. But in case you are having this error, this is what you can do. So go ahead inside of your next.config.js inside, and let's go ahead and let's add webpack option. Let's get the current config, and let's go ahead and do config.module.rules.push, and inside let's write test and go ahead and add a /, then go ahead and add the /, I'm not sure where it is. There we go. The backward slash .mjs, add a little $sign and then a forward slash. So an regex2 recognize .mjs. And you can also copy this from my GitHub directly if you're having trouble writing this. And then let's do include forward slash node underscore modules forward slash as well. And type, let's go ahead and write JavaScript slash auto like this. And very important is that you do return config in the end, like that. And what I recommend you do next is shut down your application. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut down my npm run dev and do npm run dev again. And you can keep your ngrok running, right? So this is automatically going to get connected. Don't worry about that. And go ahead and refresh your page again. And let's see if this resolved the issue. There we go. Now you can see the text stream and you can see how for a second it said cannot watch the stream, meaning it's loading the token. And now we have our text, meaning that we successfully fixed that little issue. So go back inside of the components, stream player, and now we can continue developing inside of here. So let's go ahead and give this LiveKit room a class name, which is gonna go ahead and have a grid calls 1, lg gap y 0, lg grid calls 3, xl grid calls 3 as well, 2xl grid calls 6, and h full, like this. And let's just not misspell grid here, so make sure you don't have any misspellings. So whenever you hover on a class, it should give you exactly what it's doing. That way you know that you have correct names, and that is the extension called Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, which we install in the beginning of the project. And then let's add a little div here, and let's create the class name for the first column inside of this grid, which is going to hold our video column. So space y4, call span 1, on LG call span 2, on XL call span 2 as well, on 2XL, call span 5. On LG, overflow Y auto, hidden scroll bar. So this hidden scroll bar is what we got when we copied my globals CSS. If you remember from the beginning, I told you to copy it from my GitHub, and in here we have hidden scroll bar. So that's what we're going to use here. And padding bottom of 10. Like that. And then inside we can go ahead and render the video component, which you don't have yet, so don't import this from anywhere. Instead, just pass the prop host name to be user.username and pass in the host identity to be user.id, like that. Great. And now we have to go ahead and create the video component. So we're going to do that inside of the stream player. And what I actually should have done is created a folder for stream player. So let's do the following. I'm going to shut down my app just so I don't have any cache errors here. So I'm shutting down my npm run dev. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder stream player. I'm going to drag and drop the component stream player inside of that folder like this. I'm going to click OK if this pops up, and then I should have one unsaved file here inside of my dashboard username home page. So in here now I have stream player from stream player stream player. So you can save this for now, but we're going to fix that in a second. So go back inside of your components and simply rename this component to index like this. And if this shows again, you can click OK, and then again you're going to have an unsaved file here in dashboard username homepage.tsx, and you can see how now it changed back to that previous version because we're using the index. So you can just click save, and there we go. Great. And now let me go ahead and just run my app again. So npm run dev like this. Let's refresh the local host and let's go back inside of here. And now inside of this stream player folder, create a new file video.tsx like that. Let's go ahead and mark this as use client. Let's create an interface video props to accept a host name, which is a string, and a host identity, which is also a string. And let's do export const video, and let's assign the props video props, and let's return a div saying video like this. Now let's go back inside of the stream player index and import video from video as I did right here. And when you save, you should no longer be having any errors. Instead, once this token loads from cannot watch the stream, you should be seeing the video. Great. So now let's go inside of the video and let's go ahead and start developing our loading states. So in here, I want to give this div a class name of aspect video, border bottom, group, and a relative, like this. All right, and now you should have a little border right here in the bottom, as you can see. And when you expand to a larger screen, you can see how it has a cutoff, because this space here is going to be for our chat. But on mobile mode, the entire space is going to be for the video. Now inside of the video component, we have to import a couple of hooks which are going to help us with the current status of the stream. So let's go ahead and import connection state from LiveKit client, and let's also import track from LiveKit client. Then let's go ahead and import the following hooks from @LiveKit components React. So we're going to need use connection state. We're going to use remote participant and use tracks, like that. And now inside of here, let's extract the host name and the host identity. And let's go ahead and first get the connection state, which is going to be use connection state. Then let's go ahead and let's get the participant from use remote participant and pass in the host identity. Then let's go ahead and get the tracks, so audio and video tracks, right, from use tracks, like that. And go ahead and pass in an array inside to use track.source.camera and track.source.microphone, like that. So make sure you have imported track from LiveKit client here at the top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add .filter, get the individual track, and only use those which match the host identity. So track.participant.identity is equal to host identity, like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and dynamically render the content. So let content, and I'm going to go ahead and replace this with content, like this. And let's go ahead and do the following. If we don't have the participant from the hook, and if the connection state is connection state.connected, so you can import connection state from LiveKit client. So if we don't have the participant and we are connected, in that case, it means that we are offline. So I'm just going to write a paragraph, host is offline, like that. Now let's go ahead and write else if there is no participant or tracks.length is 0. In that case, the content is going to be a paragraph which says loading. And then let's do a last else. Content is going to be a paragraph, live video, right? Great. So now let's go ahead and try this out. So now it says loading, cannot watch the stream, loading, and then host is offline. So now I'm going to go inside of my OBS studio and I'm going to click start streaming. So do the same thing and just confirm that inside of your stream settings, you have the matching server URL and stream key. So now if I go ahead and click start streaming, I shouldn't even have to refresh. Instead, there we go. Now it said loading for a second and then it said live video. And if I go ahead and click stop streaming, it should go back to offline. There we go. So we successfully have the connection. All we have to do now is change this from being paragraphs to actually being video components. So just one more time, I want to show you how to do it in your OBS, just in case you're confused. So you should have a big button which says start streaming, and just confirm in your settings in your stream that you have the matching server and stream key from your keys right here, right? So confirm that these two are matching, go back inside of here and go ahead and click the big start streaming button right here. And then once you do that, it says live video. Once I go back and click stop streaming, it's going to say host is offline. So the first state I want to create is the offline video. So make sure you are not streaming. Make sure this says host is offline, right? And let's go ahead and create another component inside of our stream player folder called offlinevideo.tsx, like that. And let's go ahead and import Wi-Fi off from Lucid React. And let's create an interface offline video props here to accept the username, which is a string. And let's export const offline video like that to accept the props offline video props. And then we can destructure the username. And all we're going to do is simply return a div with a class name of hfull flex call space y4 justify center and items center. And then inside we're going to render the Wi-Fi off icon, and we're going to give it a class name of height of 10, width of 10, and text muted foreground. And then below that, open up a paragraph and give it a class name of text muted foreground as well. And inside render a span, my apologies. So a span like this, which is simply going to render the username. Actually, we don't need a span at all. We can just do username is offline. As simple as this. Now go back inside of your video component, and instead of rendering the paragraph host is offline, we can now render the offline video component. So make sure you add the import for offline video as I did here, and go ahead and pass in the username property to be host name like that. And now you should have a nice text which says Antonio is offline. Great. So now what I want to do is I want to create the loading video component. So it's going to be very similar. So you can actually copy offline video and paste it here and rename it to loading video like that. Go inside of the loading video, and first let's rename the props from offline video to be loading video like that. And let's change the prop to accept a label, and let's go ahead and extract the label from the props here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to import Wi-Fi off. Instead, I'm going to import loader like this. And let's go ahead and replace that icon here. And alongside height of 10, text muted foreground, let's also give it a class name animate spin. So it's going to be spinning all the time. And inside of here, let's go ahead and simply render the label like this. Great. So that's going to be our loading video here. And now let's go ahead inside of video component, and let's replace the loading state with the loading video from /loading video. So make sure you import this, and we are simply going to pass the state label to be the connection state like that. And now if you go ahead and refresh here, you can see how we have a little spinner connecting. Antonio is offline. That's how we also have disconnected when you refresh. And one thing that I want to do is go inside of the loading video and give this paragraph a class name of capitalize. So it starts with a capital letter. You can see now it looks a little bit better with the connecting being capitalized. Great. And there is one last left, and that is to create the live video component. So let's go back inside of our stream player and create a new file, livevideo.tsx, like that. Go ahead and mark this as use client, and go ahead and export const live video here and return a div live video. And now let's go ahead and create an interface, live video props, to accept a participant, which is going to be a type of participant from LiveKit client like that. And go ahead and assign the live video props here and extract the participant like this. Now go back inside of the video component, and in here finally replace this with live video from /live video, and we have to pass in the prop participant to be participant like this. There we go. Great. And now we're going to do a very simple way to render this and show the video. So inside of this div right here, we're going to add a class name, relative, hfull, and flex. And then inside, we're going to render a video element. And let's go ahead and make this a self-closing tag. And what I want to give it is a ref, which we don't have yet. So let's just give it a width of 100% for now. And then let's go ahead and let's create two refs here. So const video ref is use ref from React. So make sure you add use ref from React as I did. And we're also going to have the wrapper ref, which is also use ref. And now go ahead and give this a type. So video is going to be HTML video element, and wrapper is going to be HTML div element, and give them both default values of null, like this. And then go ahead and assign those. So this div right here is going to have a ref of wrapper ref, and the video is going to have a ref of video ref, like that. So make sure you added this. And what we have to do now is we have to use some hooks again to enable this from actually working, right? So let's go ahead and import everything we need from LiveKit components here. So let's go ahead and import use tracks from components from LiveKit components React, and from LiveKit client, let's import the track itself. And now what we can do is go ahead and do the use tracks, sorry. So make sure you imported use tracks. And let's go ahead and write track.source.camera, track.source.microphone, like this, .filter, get the individual track, and confirm that track.participant.identity is equal to the prop that we passed, so participant.identity. And then let's do for each track. If we have video ref.current, go ahead and do track.publication.track?.attach video ref.current, like this. And if you start streaming, this should be working. So I'm going inside of my OBS and I'm going to click start streaming again. And I believe that we should be seeing my screen here. There we go. You can also hear me twice because our microphone is working as well. So you should be seeing exactly what you're seeing in your OBS. Let me go ahead and show you this. So I just moved my OBS to the side here, and this is what I'm seeing here. And you can see that it has a little bit of a delay because that's exactly what's rendering in this page right now. And you should also be hearing your voice if you added the microphone source, right? Great, so this is now working, right? And if I click stop streaming in here, in a couple of seconds, this turns back to offline. Great, so what I want to add now is I want to add controls for the volume and for the microphone. What I meant to say are controls for the microphone and for the full screen preview. So go inside of the stream player and create a new file, full screen control.tsx, like this. Let's go ahead and let's import maximize and minimize from Lucid React. Let's also go ahead and mark this as use client. And let's go ahead and import the hint from /hint, but I'm going to change it to /components so it's clearer. Let's create an interface, full screen control props. Is full screen is going to be a boolean, and on toggle is simply going to be a void. And then let's do export const full screen control. Let's assign the props, full screen control props, and let's go ahead and extract the is full screen and on toggle from here. And now let's go ahead and dynamically render the icon. So const icon with capital I is going to check if we are full screen. In that case, we use the minimize icon, otherwise maximize icon. Maximize, like this. And then let's render the label for the hint. So if is full screen, in that case, the hint is going to be exit full screen. Otherwise, it's going to be enter full screen, like this. And let me just expand this so you can see it in one line. And then let's go ahead and return a div with a class name of flex items center, justify center, and gap 4. Let's go ahead and add our hint component. Let's give it a label and as child property. And inside, we're going to render a native button. So don't import button from anywhere, right? So this is a native button component. We are not importing this. And inside, we're going to go ahead and render the icon component. And let's go ahead and give it a class name of h-5 and w-5. And give this button an on-click to be on toggle. And let's give it a class name of text white p-1.5 hover bg-white/10 and rounded large, like that. Great, so we have our volume control. Now we can go back inside of the live video here, and below the video component, let's add a div with a class name of absolute top 0. So we have to make this absolute to our relative container so we can always put it at the bottom. And we also want to add a little overlay which is darkened so the user can clearly see those buttons, right? So let's give it an absolute top 0, h full, width full, opacity 0 by default. But when we hover, that's when we're gonna see those actions. And let's also add a transition all. Then inside, let's create a div and further position these elements. So class name here is going to be absolute bottom 0, flex h14, width full, items center, justify between, bg gradient to right from neutral 900 and px4, and then inside put the full screen control like this, and let's give it a value is full screen of false, and let's give it on toggle to just be an empty arrow function like this. And now I'm gonna go ahead and click start streaming again, so make sure you click start streaming, and this should connect, and there we go. You can see how I have a nice button which says enter full screen, and it's not visible now, but when I hover, that's when it's visible. Great. So now what I want to do is create the actual functionality to toggle between full screen or not. So first thing that I want to do is create a state. So let's do use state here, and after this refs, let's add const is full screen, set is full screen, use state, and by default it's going to be false. And then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create const toggle full screen to be a function which is going to check if we are full screen, if is full screen, right, from this state. In that case, is full screen. So basically this one, make sure you have no errors, right? So if it is full screen, we're gonna do document.exit full screen like that. And let's go ahead and do else if we have wrapper ref current. Let's do wrapper ref.current.request full screen like that. And then let's go ahead and add the states here. So we're gonna go ahead and do set is full screen to be true, and let's go ahead here and write set is full screen to be the opposite. This is true and this is false, right? So let's go ahead and do that now. So inside of this on toggle, I want to go ahead and give it a property of toggle full screen, and give this one a property of is full screen, right? So let's see if that is enough for this to work. So make sure you start your stream. So I'm going to do that now. There we go. I'm connected. And when I click on this, there we go. I am in full screen. And when I click again, I exit the full screen. Perfect. Exactly what we want. And as you can see, there is a little issue that we have here. So that happens if you go ahead and click on enter full screen and then use the escape button to exit the full screen, right? And then when you try again, we have an error. So let's go ahead and resolve that. So I'm going to import use I'm going to import use event listener from use hooks. So let's import use event listener from use hooks TS. And then what I'm going to create is another function here. So just below the toggle full screen called const handle full screen change, like this. And I'm going to do const is currently full screen to be document dot full screen element is not null, like that. So let me see if I can zoom out a bit more so you can see it in one line, like that. And then I'm going to do set is full screen to do is currently full screen, like that. And then let's do use event listener, which we imported, to listen to full screen change, and do handle full screen change and add the wrapper ref as the third argument, like this. So I believe that now we should no longer be having that issue. I'm going to refresh here just to confirm. So if I go ahead inside and escape and then try again, and it is working great. And I believe that actually we can now remove this manual state changes because we have an event listener. So I think we can just remove this and let this handle the wrapper and let this handle the state. So let's try it now. I'm going to refresh again. Cannot watch the stream. Okay. And I think this is still working. Yeah, looks like this is an even better solution because we won't have any conflicting set states here. Perfect. Great. So just don't spam this too much. I actually tested this on other streaming websites as well. And apparently there is a limit to how much you can toggle between full screen and minimized. And apparently at some point it will break and you're just gonna keep getting errors until you clear the cache or something like that. So just don't spam it too much. Just confirm that you can exit and enter, and that you can escape, click the escape button and then enter again. Great, so we finished that. What I wanna create now is the volume control. So let's go back inside of our stream player folder, right? And just as we created the full screen control, I wanna create the volume control.tsx. Let's mark this as use client, and let's import volume 1 from Lucid React, volume 2 from Lucid React, and volume X from Lucid React. So we're gonna handle 3 states, right? If we are muted, if we turned on the volume, and if we are at max volume. So let's go ahead and import hint from /hint. So I'm just going to change this to use @/components, like that. And we also need a slider, so we can import that from ShadCN UI. So go ahead and make sure that you have npm run dev running and that you have your ngrok running. And I'm just going to use a new terminal to do npx ShadCN -UI at latest add slider, like this. Just wait a second for this to install. And great, go back inside of the code, and now you can also import slider, not from Radix, but from /UI slider or components UI slider. Let's create an interface volume control props here. On toggle is going to be a simple void function. On change is going to be a value which passes in the number and a void, and value is the current volume value. Now let's export const volume control here. Let's go ahead and assign the props here. Volume control props. Let's extract on toggle, on change, and value, like this. And now let's go ahead and let's do const is muted if value is equal to 0, and const is above half is going to be if value is larger than 50. So the icon by default is going to use the volume 1 option, but if we are muted, then we're going to change the icon to use volume X. Else, if is above half, we're going to go ahead and do icon to be volume 2, so it indicates to the user that it is louder. Now let's create the label for our hint. So if is muted, let's go ahead and write unmute, otherwise mute. And let's do const handle change to accept the value, which is an array of numbers, because that's how the slider component works. And what we're going to do is just do on change and pass in and passing the first of that like this. And now let's go ahead and create our components. So return a div with a class name of flex item center and gap 2. Let's create a hint component. Let's pass in the label to be label and as child property. Inside, render the button component, and let's go ahead and give it an on click to be on toggle. And let's give it a class name of text white, hover bg white /10, padding 1.5 and rounded large. And then let's render the icon component and give it a class name of h6 and width of 6, like that. And then outside of hint, render the slider component and go ahead and give it a class name of width 8 rem, like that, and cursor pointer. Give it an on value change to be handle change and give it a value of array and just pass in the current value. And max is going to be 100 and step is going to be 1. Like that. Perfect. And now let's go back inside of our live video component. And just as we render the full screen control, above it, render the volume control from /volume control. So make sure you have both of those imported. And now let's go ahead and pass in the onChange to just be an empty arrow function. Let's pass in the value to be 0. Let's pass in the onToggle to be an empty arrow function as well. And go ahead and start streaming. And now you should be seeing those two icons. Once you connect, there we go. You can see how we can mute and unmute, and we have this little slider. So what I do now is modify this slider so it looks a bit better. So for that, let's go inside of our components folder, UI slider. And in here, I want to change a couple of stuff here. So first, I want to change this from not being H2, but instead I want it to be H0.5. So it looks just a little bit smaller. You can see how my line is very small. And then I'm going to change this from BG secondary to BG white /10. And now you can see how my slider is kind of transparent. What I want to do next is I want to go ahead and modify this thumb here. So I want to change the height and width of 5 to instead be 3.5 and width 3.5 as well. And I want to go ahead and change it from BG background to be BG white like this. And let's see if that's going to improve it. And there we go. That looks better. Great. And now let's go ahead and create the actual functions for this. So let's go inside of the stream player and inside of the index here. And let's go ahead and add the state for, not inside of stream player, inside of live video, sorry. Let's go ahead and let's duplicate this and change this one to be to volume. And let's do set volume. And let's go ahead and give it a default value of 0 like this. And now let's go ahead and let's write const on volume change to accept the value, which is a number. Let's do set volume. And let's go ahead and just do plus volume, a value like this. And then let's go ahead and do if video ref (current). Let's do video ref.current.muted is value is equal to 0, and video ref.current.volume is going to be plus value times 0.01, like that. So we have to modify both the state and the actual video element, right? And now let's go ahead and create const toggle mute like this, and check const is muted to be volume equals 0, and let's do set volume is muted 50, otherwise 0. So that's how we're going to toggle. If we toggle from muted to unmuted, we're going to bring it back to 50, otherwise we bring it to 0. And now we have to do the same thing. So if we have video ref.current, in that case, let's do video ref.current.muted to be the opposite of the current value, and video ref.current.volume is going to check if is muted, it's going to be 0.5, otherwise is going to be 0, like that. Great. And one more thing that I want to do is I want to add the use effect, like that. And I want to ensure that at the beginning of when this page loads, the volume is muted. So I'm going to do use effect like this. And I'm just going to do on volume change and pass in 0 manually, like that. Because it's not enough that we just set the volume to 0 here, because we have to fire these elements on video ref. So that's why I'm calling a use effect, which will only fire once because there's nothing in the dependency array, and trigger that. Great. And now let's go ahead and pass in all of the props here. So on change in here is going to be on volume change. Value is going to be the volume, and on toggle is going to be toggle mute, like that. So make sure you are live streaming, and you should now be able, as you can see, when I go above 50, I have one icon. When I mute, it's another icon. So you should be able to mute, unmute, and do all of those things. Great job. You just finished the video component, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to create the chat component. So now I want to go ahead and create our chat component. So first things first, I want to create our store, which can handle whether the chat is collapsed or expanded. So let's go ahead and let's copy the creator sidebar and paste it here in the store, and let's rename it to use chat sidebar, like this. Now what we have to do is rename all the instances of creator sidebar to chat sidebar, like that. And then I quickly want to add one more thing here, which is export enum chat variant, like that. So we're going to be able to toggle between chat and between community to look at all the people who are currently in the stream, right? And from then we can ban the user or something else. So let's give it the default. Let's go ahead and add the variant. Sorry, that's what I meant to say here, to be the type of chat variant. And let's go ahead and add one more function here on change variant, which accepts the variant, which is a type of chat variant, and simply returns a void. And now we have to add a default value for the variant to be chat variant.chat. And we have to add the onChange variant to be variant and accepts the chat variant type and returns set, which simply assigns the variant. Like that. Great. And now I want to go back inside of the stream player component. So we have stream player index right here. And in here, I want to go ahead and I want to import use chat sidebar. And I also want to import cn from libutils, like that. And now in here, just after we do the viewer token hook, let's go ahead and let's extract from use chat sidebar, where we're gonna get the entire state here. Let's go ahead and extract collapsed, like this. And then I want to go ahead inside of these options here and kind of modify these class names here. So let's wrap this inside of curly brackets. Let's wrap it inside of cn, like this. And let's go ahead and collapse these classes inside of the first line. And then let's add dynamically collapsed, in that case, on large grid calls 2, on XL grid calls 2 as well, and on 2XL grid calls 2 as well, like that. Great, and I want to go ahead and now render our chat component. So we're going to do that outside of this div, which encapsulates our video. So go ahead and add a div here, and let's go ahead and give it class name to be cn, so dynamic. So either call span 1, or if it is collapsed, it's gonna have a hidden class name, like that. Great. And now inside we can render the chat component, which we're gonna create in a second. And let's pass in the viewer name to be the name prop, let's pass in the host name to be user.username. Let's go ahead and pass the host identity to be user.id. Let's go ahead and pass in is following here to go from is following, which we have as a prop from here. Let's give it is chat enabled to be stream is chat enabled from our settings, right? And we have the stream inside of our props because we pass it inside of app dashboard username home page in here. As you can see, for the stream player, we pass the stream. So we definitely have the stream option here. All right, besides is chat enabled, we also have is chat delayed. So that's going to be stream is chat delayed, and is chat followers only is going to be stream is chat followers only, like that. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's create the chat component. So inside of stream player, create a new file chat.tsx. Let's mark this as use client. And let's create an interface chat props to accept the host name, to accept the host identity, the viewer name, the is following, which is a boolean, and then we have our is chat enabled, we have the is chat delayed, and we have is chat followers only. And let's do export const chat. And let's assign all of those props, so chat props like that, and we can return a div which simply renders the text chat. Now let's go back inside of the stream player index, and you can import that from /chat like I did right here, like we did with our video component, right? Great, now let's go back inside of this chat here and let's go ahead and extract all the props we need. So we need the host name, we need the host identity, viewer name, is following, is chat enabled, is chat delayed, and is chat followers only, like this. And make sure you add the appropriate commas here. And let me just go ahead and refresh this a little bit just to confirm that this is still working. And there we go, you can see how chat is now here below, but if I expand to desktop mode, you can see how chat is here on the side, right? So when it collapses on mobile, it's going to be below the stream, but here it's going to be on this side, and we're going to be able to collapse it and expand it. Great. So now I want to go ahead and add all the necessary stuff we need in here. So const matches is going to be use media query from use hooks ts, and let's go ahead and do the same thing as we did in our wrapper and container components. We're going to automatically collapse, right? So let's use max width, in parentheses, max width is 1024 pixels. Now let's go ahead and extract from use chat sidebar, where we get the entire state. So make sure you added use chat sidebar import. So in here, we're going to extract the variant and on expand, like that, and then we're going to use some LiveKit hooks to establish whether this chat is connected or not. So const connection state is going to be use connection state, and you can import that from LiveKit components React, like that. And let's go ahead and let's do const participant to be use remote participant and pass in the host identity, and make sure you imported use remote participant from our LiveKit package. And now let's go ahead and write const is online is simply going to be if participant exists and if connection state is equal to connection state dot connected. And we have to import the connection state from LiveKit client. So go ahead and import this from LiveKit client, like that. And let me just move my imports here, and let me just collapse this. There we go. So these are the imports we need. So make sure that you check is online to have a participant and to confirm that the connection state from the use connection state hook matches the connected status, like that. Great. And now let's go ahead and write is hidden to see if we are able to display the chat or not. So for that, we're going to use the opposite value of is chat enabled or is online. So we are going to hide the chat if the user is offline. And now I'm going to go ahead and prepare some items from our form, right? Because we're going to have form to send messages. So value and set value come from use state, which you can import from React. So just make sure you do the import use state from React like this. And now let's go ahead and let's import chat messages and send from use chat from LiveKit components React, right? So this is going to be using webhooks. Right here, use chat from LiveKit components React. It's going to use webhooks for this specific chat room. And let's go ahead and remap this chat messages to messages like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and write a use effect here, which you can import from React. And in here, I'm simply going to go ahead and I'm going to reset the collapsed state depending on our matches query here. So the same thing we did a couple of times in our container components. So if matches on expand like that, and let's pass in the matches and on expand. Great. And now in order to render these chat messages, we first have to reverse them because this is chat, right? So it works in a reverse way. The newest messages are shown at the bottom. So let's do const reversed messages to be use memo from React. So we're going to memoize them. So make sure you imported use memo from React. And then we're going to go ahead and pass the messages in the dependency array. And then we're going to do return messages.sort get message A and message B. And we're simply going to compare using b.timestamp minus a.timestamp like this. And now let's go ahead and do const on submit here. If send doesn't exist from this use chat hook, we're immediately going to break the function. And then let's do send value, and then let's reset set value to an empty string like this. And lastly, let's add a function const on change to accept the value, which is a string, and calls set value and sets that value. Great, like that. And now let's go ahead and let's create a div here with a class name of flex call bg background border left border bottom padding top of 0 and height is gonna be open square bracket calc 100 VH minus 80 pixels. Make sure you don't put any spaces like this because that's not a valid Tailwind CSS class. So let me zoom out so you can see it. So this is the class. This specific height is what we want. And now you can see when I zoom out, you can see how it takes the entire space here and it has a nice little color. Great. So what I want to create now is my chat header. So it indicates what's currently being seen here. So let's render chat header here. All right. And now let's go ahead and create that component inside of stream player chat header.tsx. Let's mark this as use client. And let's go ahead and do export const chat header. And let's return a div with a class name of relative p3 and border bottom. And now I want to go ahead and create a paragraph stream chat like this with a class name of font semi-bold, text primary, and text center like that. And in here, I'm going to add a little comment to do toggle chat sidebar. And in here, I'm going to add to do toggle chat community like this. Great. And now I want to go ahead and already prepare my chat skeleton. So let's import the skeleton from .ui skeleton, but I'm going to change it to /components. And let's export const chat header skeleton so we can later use it while the chat is loading. So it's going to be very simple. We are simply going to go ahead and return a div with a class name of relative, padding of 3, border bottom, hidden, and MD visible. Like that. And let's add a skeleton component here with a class name of absolute h6 width 6 left 3 and top 3. So that's going to represent this button, which currently doesn't exist yet, right? In case you're confused. And the other one is going to simply represent the text in the middle h6 and MX Auto like that. Great. Now let's go back inside of the chat component and let's import the chat header from /chat header as I added right here. And once you save this, you should no longer be having any errors, and instead you should have a nice text which says stream chat at the top. So now I want to go ahead and actually create the chat toggle component for which we wrote a to-do, right? So go inside of the chat header here and replace this with a chat toggle component like that, and make sure you don't import this from anywhere. And now go inside of stream player and create a new file, chat toggle.tsx, like that. Let's go ahead and mark this as use client. Let's go ahead and import arrow left from line and arrow right from line. This is going to be very similar to our existing toggle components, but this one is specific for the chat. Let's import hint from /hint. I'm going to replace it to go to /components. Let's go ahead and import the button from /UI button. And I'm just going to go ahead and replace this to go from /components as well. And let's import use chat sidebar from @store use chat sidebar. Now let's export const chat toggle here. It's not going to have any props. Instead, it's going to be using the use chat sidebar and get the entire state here. And from the state, we're going to extract the collapsed, on expand, and on collapse, like that. And now let's go ahead and let's assign our icon dynamically. So if it is collapsed, it's going to be arrow left from line, otherwise arrow right from line. And I believe this can actually be a constant, no need for let. And make sure the icon is capitalized like that. And now let's create const on toggle here. If we are collapsed, very simply, this is going to call the on expand function. Otherwise, it's going to call on collapse function. Now let's create a label for our hint component. So if it's collapsed, it's gonna say expand. Otherwise, it's gonna say collapse, like this. And now let's finally return our hint component, which is going to have a label of label, side of left, and an as child property. And inside, we're going to render our button component. So we have both of those imported right here, right? Our button component is going to have an on-click of on-toggle, a variant of ghost, and a class name of hAuto padding 2, hover bg white 10, and hover text primary. And on default, bg is going to be transparent, like that. And then inside, we can simply render our icon component with a class name of h4 and width of 4, like this. Now we can go back inside of the chat header and you can import the chat toggle from /chat toggle, which we just created. And now inside of your chat, you should be seeing this collapse component right here, but it looks like it messed up our text here. So let's go ahead and see if we are missing something from the chat header. Yes, let's go ahead and wrap this inside of a div and give it a class name of absolute, left -2, top -2, hidden, and LG block. So on mobile, as you can see here, the collapse button is not going to be visible, but when we expand, it's going to be visible right here. And you can see how it already works because we hide that if it's not visible. So now what we need is to render this chat toggle once it's collapsed somewhere, right? We need a way to bring it back. So for that, what we can do is go back inside of the stream player component. So in the stream player index right here, you can see how already this works because we use that dynamic CN hidden here, right? So let's go ahead and do the following. We already have collapsed here. So what I'm going to do is go outside of the LiveKit room, and in here, I'm going to dynamically render if collapsed. In that case, render a div with a class name of hidden, but visible on desktop, fixed, top, 100 pixels from above, 2 from the right, and z index of 50. And inside, I'm going to render the chat toggle from ./chat toggle, which we just created. So now what should happen is that you can click here, and there we go, you have a button to bring it back. Perfect, our content is nicely expanding now because of course we added that dynamic CN library here as well, so you can see how we change the grid if we are collapsed, so that's why it automatically expands. Great, and our chat is hidden if it is collapsed. Perfect. So now what I want to do is I want to create a similar component but to toggle the variant of the chat. So what we can do is simply copy and paste the chat toggle component inside of the stream player folder and rename it to variant toggle, like this. And now let's rename all instances here, so export const variant toggle as well, like that. And now let's go ahead and modify the icons here. So actually we're not going to need, first let's do the chat sidebar. So we're not going to need any of this. Instead, we're going to need the variant and onChange variant, like that. And then we're going to use the following. If variant is equal to chat variant, which you can import from store use chat sidebar, so from where we get the use chat sidebar itself, just confirm that you have an export for the enum chat variant. So now we can type safely confirm that something is a chat, for example, and in that case the icon is going to be users, otherwise it's going to be message square. So make sure you import both the users and the message square from Lucid React, like this. Great, so now what I want to do next is I want to create one stable constant here. Const is chat to be variant, chat variant dot chat, like this. So I don't have to repeat this too many times, and I can actually then do this. We can replace that with is chat, right? And then let's go ahead inside of our on toggle and let's write const new variant to be is chat, chat variant dot community, otherwise chat variant dot chat. And let's do onChange variant new variant. Very simple, like that. And let's change the label to check if is chat. In that case, the label is going to be community. Otherwise, it's going to be go back to chat, like that. And we can pretty much leave this the same. In fact, we can leave it exactly as it is. This is great. And now let's go back inside of our chat header component right here where we render the chat toggle and we have this to do comment. And let's go ahead and add a div here with a class name of absolute right 2 and top 2. And let's render the variant toggle from ./variant toggle. And there we go. Now we have our variant toggle. You can see how it can switch between community and chat. And when it's collapsed, I mean when it's on mobile mode, we still have it visible here. Perfect. Now I want to modify what's rendered inside of the stream chat depending if we are on the community variant or the chat variant. So for that, let's go back inside of our chat.tsx component in here. And below the chat header, we're going to go ahead and check if variant is equal to chat variant, which you can import from store use chat sidebar. So just ensure that you have chat variant imported from store use chat sidebar and ensure that you also extract the variant from use chat sidebar here. So you can do this check if chat variant is chat. In that case, go ahead and render a fragment. For now, it's going to say a paragraph chat mode. And then below that, write variant is equal to chat variant.community. And go ahead and simply render a paragraph. Okay, let's go ahead and do a fragment. And then let's do a paragraph community like this. And now when you try it, it says chat mode. When I click here, it switches to community. Great. Now first let's do the chat mode. So what I want to do first is create a form. So let's do chat form here. And let's go ahead and pass on submit to be on submit function, which we've defined. Value is value, which we already have in our state here. On change is on change. Is hidden. Is hidden. Is followers only. Is followers only. sorry, is chat followers only, right? Is delayed, is chat delayed, and is following, like this. And now let's go ahead and create the chat form inside of the stream player folder. So chat form right here, let's go ahead and mark this as use client. Let's go ahead and import use state from React. Let's go ahead and import cn from libutils. Let's go ahead and import the input component from /UI input, which I will change to use /components. Let's do the same thing for the button, and let's do the same thing for the skeleton component like that. So I'm just going to replace those two to use components as well, like this. Now let's go ahead and create an interface chat form props to have on submit, which is a void, a value, which is a string, on change, which accepts the value and returns a void, is hidden, which is a boolean, is followers only, which is a boolean as well. And now we're going to have is following, and we're going to have is delayed, like that. And now let's do export const chat form. Let's go ahead and assign the props. So chat form props on submit, value, on change, is hidden, is followers only, is following, and is delayed. And now go back to the chat and import the chat form from /chat form the same way we did with the header. And let's go ahead and see what we did wrong. Oh, it looks like we're not rendering anything, so we can just return a div chat form. And now the error is gone and we can see the text chat form. Great. So now I want to go ahead and create a form element here instead of a div element, like this. I want to give it a class name of flex call items center and gap width 4 and padding of 3. I want to go ahead and also give it an on submit, which for now is simply going to be an empty arrow function. So I'm going to collapse these elements here. Inside of the chat form, I'm going to go ahead and render the input component. So let's go ahead and pass in the on change for now to be an empty arrow function. Let's pass in the value to be the value which we get from the props. Disabled can go from is disabled if we don't have is disabled. So let's just go ahead and give it false for now. We are later going to create that. Let's give it a placeholder of send a message. And let's give it a class name that uses cn right here. And we're going to go with border white /10 like this, and then later we're going to create a case if we are supposed to be following this user and we are not following. So we're just going to prepare this to be dynamic. For now it's just going to be this, right? And then below this, let's actually go ahead and do this. Let's wrap this input inside of a div, and let's go ahead and give it a class name of width of full like this. And then below that, a new div with a button component, which is going to say chat. And let's go ahead and give it a type of submit, a variant of primary, and a size of small and disabled. For now, let's manually write false. And let's give its div a class name of ML Auto, like this. There we go. So now we have our chat component, and this is later going to be rendered all the way to the bottom, but for now it should be rendered here. Great. So what I want to do now is I want to create all the necessary functions and constants here. So let's go ahead and let's create the delay functionality. So if the chat is delayed, this is where we're going to simulate that. So if is delay blocked, set is delay blocked from use state. Default is going to be false, and make sure you import use state from React. And now let's define is followers only and not following. In that case, let's go ahead and do that by matching if is followers only and if it's not following. And now let's do const is disabled to be if is hidden from our global props, or if is delay blocked or is followers only and not following. So this is now finally our is disabled, and now we can go ahead and use it inside of this input for the disabled and for this button for the disabled. And now what we can also do here is pass in another value here is followers only and rounded T none and border T 0. So we're going to remove the border from the top. You can see that for my chat, have that enabled. So mine is must be following to chat. So if you enable this and go into your stream, you're going to see that it looks like our button is cut off at the top. That's what we want, because above that, there's going to be an info message to tell the user they need to be following, right? Great. And now what I'm going to add next is a function to submit. So let's do const handle submit here to be a function which takes the event, which is react.form event, and takes in the HTML form element. Let's do e.prevent default and e.stop propagation. If we have no value, or if the chat is disabled without the exclamation point at the end, break the function like this. Now let's check if is delay, and if we are not currently blocked by the delay, because it's delayed, this is the proper one, then and only then we can send the message. So let's first say that for the next part we're going to be blocked by the delay for 3 seconds, right, if it is enabled. And now let's do set timeout here, and the timeout is going to be 3000 milliseconds. And inside of the timeout, we're going to go ahead and simply do set is delay blocked like this to be false, and then on submit. And then in here, we're going to go ahead and write else. If delay is not enabled for these chat settings, we are directly going to submit like this. And now below that, I'm just going to write if is hidden, go ahead and return null like this. So now your chat should actually disappear because we are not live streaming. But if I go ahead and click start streaming in my OBS, the chat should be enabled. There we go. You can see the moment I start streaming, I can see this. But the moment I stop streaming, this is going to be disabled like that. All right. And now what I want to do is just assign all of this on submits here. So let's give this form a function of handle submit like that. And let's go ahead and give this one on change to take the event, and then call on change from our props to be event.target.value like that. And I believe we don't need to fill anything else. Everything else seems to be correct. And now let's go ahead and let's create a skeleton here. So export const chat form skeleton, return a div with a class name of flex call items center gap y4 and padding of 3. And inside render a skeleton component with a class name of width full and h10. Below that, render a div with a class name flex item center gap x2 and ml auto. And inside, let's go ahead and render 2 more skeletons. So this one is going to be class name h7 and width of 7. And the one below it is going to be h7 and width of 12. So we're practically representing what we have above. Great. Now I want to create a component called chat info so we can put it above our input here. So let's go ahead and already prepare for that. So in here, I'm going to render chat info, which we don't have yet. So let's go ahead and create it inside of the stream player, chat-info.tsx. Let's go ahead and import use memo from React. Let's go ahead and import info from Lucid React. And let's go ahead and import hint from /hint or /components hint. Now let's create an interface. Chat info props is delayed is going to be a Boolean, and is followers only is going to be a Boolean as well. Let's do export const chat info here. let's return a div chat info. Let's go ahead and assign the props chat info props, and let's extract is delayed and is followers only. And now we can go back inside of the original chat form and import the chat info. So make sure you're doing this inside of chat form, right? And now we have to pass some props here. So we get rid of this TypeScript errors. So above the input, we have chat info, and let's pass in is delayed to be is delayed from our props. And we're gonna have is followers only to come from is followers only, like this. Now go back inside of the chat info here, and let's go ahead and create some arbitrary values here. So const hint is use memo, which we have imported. And in the dependency array, we're gonna pass in the is delayed and is followers only. So depending on those, we're going to render a specific message for the user. So if is followers only, and if we are not delayed, so only followers only, we're gonna return only followers can chat. And then let's do if is delayed and not is followers only, return messages are delayed by 3 seconds. And last one, if both of them are active, is delayed and is followers only, return only followers can chat, messages are delayed by 3 seconds. Like that. And let's go ahead and write a default like that. So that's going to be our hint. And now let's create our label. So you can copy and paste this function hint and paste it here. Rename it to label. And the first one is simply going to say followers only. The second one is simply going to say slow mode. And the last one is going to say followers only and slow mode. Like that. And now let's go ahead and add if none of these props are active. So if it's not delayed, or if the chat is not followers only, then no need to show any message, right? It's just a normal chat. Great. And now we can go ahead and modify this and give this a class name of padding2 text muted foreground bg white 5 border white 10 full width rounded top medium flex items center and gap x2, and render a hint, give it a label of hint, and inside render the info component which we have from Lucid React, give it a class name of h4 and width 4, and outside of the hint render the label and give it a class name of text extra small and font semi bold. Like this. And now I'm gonna go ahead and go inside of your chat settings here and go ahead and enable, make sure the chat is enabled, and go ahead and enable both delay chat and must be following, and go back inside of your stream and click start streaming. And now when this gets connected, there we go. We have info that followers only is on, like that. And if I go inside of my chat and just do, for example, turn off delay chat and just be the followers, then you're gonna see that it's gonna say a different message. Now it says followers only. Great. So now what we have to do is we have to create an actual list of messages. So let's go ahead back inside of our chat component. So chat.tsx, and in here we have a fragment which renders the chat form, and now above that we're going to render chat list like this, and we're gonna have to pass in some props here. So let's go ahead and give it messages, which are our reversed messages, and let's give it is hidden, which is our hidden prop, like this. And now let's go ahead inside of the, well, we have to create the chat list component. So let me just close everything but this. Great. Now let's go inside of stream player and create chat list.tsx like this. let's create an interface chat list props to accept messages, which are going to be the received chat message array. So received chat message from LiveKit components React, and is hidden, which is a boolean. And now let's export const chat list like this, and let's return a div chat list. And let's go ahead and assign the props, chat list props like that. And let's go ahead and mark this as use client. Go back inside of your chat and you can then import chat list from /chat list the same way we did with our chat header and our chat form. And now what I want to do is extract messages and is hidden. And what we're going to do now is we're going to write if is hidden, or if there are no messages, or if messages.length is 0, go ahead and return a text which says class name flex, flex1, items center, and justify center. Then in here, write a paragraph which is going to check if is hidden. We're going to write chat is disabled. Otherwise, welcome to the chat. And go ahead and give this paragraph a class name of text small and text muted foreground like that. Great. And now, since I'm not streaming, you can see that it says chat is disabled. And same is true if you go ahead and turn on and disable the chat from the settings, right? So what we have to do now is we have to create our chat message component. So let's go ahead and do this here. So I'm going to write class name flex, flex1, flex call reverse, overflow y, auto, padding of 3, and full height. And inside, let's do messages.map, get the individual message here. Whoops. Get the individual message, and in here render chat message component. And let's go ahead and pass in the key to be message.timestamp, and data is going to be the message itself. Like that. And now we have to create our chat message components. Inside of the stream player, create chat message.tsx. Let's go ahead and mark this as use client, and let's create an interface chat message props data received chat message, but without an array since it's single. And let's export const chat message like this. Let's return a div, and let's go ahead and assign the props chat message props, and we can extract the data. Go back to chat list, and you can now import this from /chat message, and you should not be getting any type errors. Let's go inside of here, and now what I want to do is I want to go inside of my lib utils, so where we have the cn function, and we're going to add a new function, export const string to color. So we're going to generate a unique color based on the username of the sender. So we're going to accept a string. Let's go ahead and write hash is equal to 0. And let's go ahead and do a for loop. So for let I be 0, I is less than the total length of the string. And let's increase I on every iteration. And we're going to change the hash to be string.char code at 1 plus hash. Make sure you do double of this sign right here, minus hash, like this. And then let's do let color be a hashtag, and let's do for let I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, and I plus plus. So we are practically generating an RGB color using the string, right? So that's why we need these values. Now let's do hash in the opposite direction, doubles, right? Multiplied by 8, like this. And now what you have to write is very specific. You have to write this and 0xff. You can also just copy this from my GitHub. So this is just some snippet that I found, which uses string to generate a hex code. That's all this does, right? And now let's add this to the color variable here. So 00 plus value to string 16 dot substring -2, like that, and let's return color. Great. Or you can just copy it simply from my GitHub if it's simpler. Let's go back inside of the chat message here, and let's go ahead and write const color is string to color from libutils, which we just modified, right? So make sure you added an export for string to color, or you can use an npm package for this. It really doesn't matter. And let's do data.from $name or an empty string like that. And then let's go ahead and give this a class name of flex, gap2, padding 2, rounded md, hover bg white /5. Let's render a paragraph here, and inside of here I'm going to render a timestamp. So we need to install npm install datefns. So make sure you add that to your project. Let's go ahead and let's import format from datefns. And inside of the paragraph, we're going to format data timestamp in a format of HHMM. And let's add this comma in a proper place right here. Let's give this a class name of text small and text white /40. And then let's create a div with a class name flex wrap items baseline gap1 and grow. And then create a paragraph here with a class name of text small, font semi-bold, and white space no wrap. Then create a span, which is going to render data from name. And let's go ahead and let's give this a class name of truncate, and let's give it a style color like that. And then outside of that paragraph, add a new one with a class name of text small and break all. And inside data.message. Like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and try this out. So start your stream. Make sure that the chat is enabled, and let me try and send the message here. And there we go. You can see how we have a nice name generated from myself here. You can see that the messages are here in real time. And let me just go ahead and do one thing. Oh, so I added a space here for the format. So let's just join it like this. Great. So you can go ahead and test this with a user in another browser to see if it's working. But actually you cannot test this because this is only in the creator dashboard. So we're going to taste it later at the end. But there you go. You created the chat functionality. You have real time, you have sockets, and they reset after you refresh because, you know, streams are not here forever. So it's a business decision for you whether you want to save the chat messages or not. In this tutorial, I'm just going to make them temporary during the live stream, right? Because that kind of is the purpose of these messages. Great, so our chat is working great in real time, and it also handles like long messages. You can see how they collapse here nicely. Great job. So now what we have to build is the community tab, right? So right now we have the chat, and you can see how it's disabled when I'm not streaming. But if I go ahead and click start streaming in OBS, it's gonna get triggered right here. One thing that I see missing here is that we don't have the semicolon for who is talking, right? So let's go ahead and quickly fix that. So inside of this chat message, I'm gonna add a semicolon at the end of this, sorry, a colon here at the end. And there we go. Now we have an indicator that it is Antonio that's saying this. And now while I am inside of, not inside of chat message, but go back inside of the chat list component where we render the chat messages, I want to go ahead and just create a little skeleton here. So let's go ahead and do export const chat skeleton. And let's return a div that's going to have a class name of flex h full items center and justify center. And inside, we're simply going to render a skeleton, which is going to represent our text, welcome to the chat, right? So I'm going to change this to use components, and I'm going to move it above my local import here. And let's just give it a class name with 1.5, and height of 6, like this. There we go. And also, if by any chance you're confused about how this chat is working, I didn't really go around explaining that too much because I do have 2 hours left to finish this video because YouTube has a video limit. So inside of our chat.tsx, in here, is it in here? I believe it is. Just let me find it. There we go. In here, we use the use chat hook, right? From LiveKit Components React. So how does this hook know to which room to connect? Well, because of the context. So if you go ahead and hover over this, you can see that it actually has some options that you can pass. And in here, you can specify the exact room you want this chat to work with, both the send functionality and the messages received. But the reason it knows that this is in this exact room where we created the viewer token for this stream is because it has context from the stream player. So go inside of the index for the stream player, and in here, we are wrapping the entire thing inside of LiveKit room with the token and the server URL. So that's how it knows, because it's wrapped inside of a component which gives it its context, right? So that's how it knows where to send and where to read the messages. Great. So what I want to do now is go inside of the chat component here, and I want to create the other state. So we just finished the variant for chat, and now let's go ahead and create a component called chat community. And these are the props it's going to accept. So viewer name, which is viewer name, and host name, which is host name, and is hidden, which is hidden, like this. So make sure you save that. And now let's go inside of the stream player and create chat community.tsx. Let's mark this as use client. Let's export const chat community here and return a div. And let's create an interface chat community props to accept the host name, which is a string, the viewer name, which is a string, and the is hidden, which is a boolean, like that. Let's go ahead and assign the props, chat community props, and now we can go back inside of the chat component and import chat community the same way we did with chat header, list, and form. And now we should no longer be having any errors, and you can already try and click here, and there we go. Now it should just be an empty div if you switch to community mode. So now what I want to do is I want to load all participants that are inside of here, right? So let's go ahead and do the following. So let's add participants from use participants from LiveKit Components React, like this. So make sure you add this. And now what you can actually do here immediately is try it out inside of here. So I'm going to write participants.map and get the individual participant. And let's just go ahead participants, right? And inside, I'm just going to return, actually, I already returned. So let's just do a div with JSON, stringify, and let's give it an entire participant. And let's go ahead and just write math.random for the key here for now. And there we go. You can see that you should be having a big JSON output here. And here I can find my name, Antonio, right? So now we're going to go ahead and style this so it actually renders the proper participants. And we're also going to enable the ability to search for participants. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and add a value and set the value in this component here, which comes from React. So that's going to be used to filter between our participants. And now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to import use debounce from use hooks. So we slow down the queries while the user is searching. And let's go ahead and assign that to the value. So const debounced value is going to be use debounce and passing the value, and the debounce is 500, like this. And you can also define that this is a string. So every half a second is when we're actually going to filter through participants. We're not going to immediately filter through them. Now let's write our onChange function, which is going to be binded to the input, which we will add in a second, to filter through these participants. And this use participants uses the same method as use chat. So it has context because of that LiveKit component, LiveKit room component from stream player index file. So that's how it knows in which room is it looking for participants. And now let's simply write set value and pass in the value from here. And let's actually call it new value. And then let's pass in new value here so we don't conflict with the existing name. And now let's write const filtered participants. Actually, let's do that later, right? For now, I'm just going to use participants. We're going to do this later. What I want to do first is do if is hidden. Let's return a div with a class name here. flex1 items center and justify center. And let's see if we are missing is hidden. We are missing it because I did not add any of the props. So host name, viewer name, and is hidden like this. There we go. So now go back here and inside of this div, enter a paragraph. Community is disabled like this, and give this a class name of text small and text muted foreground like that. And now it should say, well, if you turn off the stream, it's going to say community is disabled, right? But since I am active, that's not what I'm seeing here. And now let's go ahead and give this div a class name of padding 4. Let's go ahead and let's add an input component, which you can import from /UI input or from /components like I'm going to do. That input is going to be used to trigger our onChange and then filter through the participants. So let's give it an onChange to get the event and call our onChange function, which accepts the new value, which is going to be event.target.value. So that's going to go in this onChange function. The value is going to change. And then later we're going to have a new constant here, which I started writing first, filtered participants, but I'm going to leave it to the end. First, I want to show you how we render the participants, and then we're going to filter to them later. And let's give this a placeholder of search community and a class name border white 10, just so it's a bit more visible. And now what I want to do is I want to add a scroll area here from ShadCN UI. So let's do npx ShadCN UI at latest add scroll area like that. Make sure you add this to your project. And once it is installed, you can go ahead and import scroll area from /UI scroll area or from /components UI scroll area. Now let's go ahead and use the scroll area here. And I want to give it a class name of gap y2 and margin top of 4. And first I'm going to add a paragraph no results, which is only going to be visible if it is the last item in this element. So we can use CSS instead of JavaScript to do that. So let's go ahead and center this. Let's go ahead and make it smaller. Let's give it a specific color like this. And it's going to be hidden by default, and it's only going to appear if it is if this last decorator matches, right? Meaning that it's the last child inside of this element. And right now that is true because it's the only child. And let's also give it a padding of 2 like this. But then what we're going to do is we're going to go through our participants.map, get the individual participant like that. And then let's render the community item. So previously we just stringified the entire data of the participant, but now we're actually going to use it inside of this component. So give it a key of participant, and this should be a single participant inside of this .map. So participant.key, .identity. Host name is going to be host name. Viewer name is going to be viewer name. And participant name is going to be participant.name, and participant identity is going to be participant.identity like that. And now let's go ahead and let's create our community item component. So let's go inside of the stream player and create community item.tsx. Let's go ahead and mark this as use client. And let's go ahead and import toast. Let's go ahead and import use transition. because from here, we're gonna enable our block functionality, right? So import this 3, toast use transition and minus circle, import hint from /hint, change it to components, import on block from actions block, which we already played around with when we created our block service, and go ahead and import cn and string to color from libutils, and also import the button component from // or components UI button. Now let's create an interface community item props to accept the host name, which is a string, viewer name, which is a string, participant name, which is an optional string, and participant identity, which is a string, like this. And export const community item. Go ahead and return a div here, and let's go ahead and assign the community item props, and let's go ahead and extract the host name, viewer name, participant identity, and participant name, basically everything that we have inside of our props here. Great, and you can go ahead and render participant name here, like this. And go back to chat community and import community item from / community item. And now, since we use this hook use participants here, and we iterate over them in here and give the data to the community item, and we render the participant name, you should be seeing 2 Antonios here, or 2 of your usernames here. So the first one is you as the streamer, and the second one is you as the viewer. So don't worry, we are going to deduplicate this, but I just want to show you that already you can see this working. Great. So now let's go ahead and let's do the following. Let's give this div a class name, which is going to be dynamic. So go ahead and fire up cn. Let's give it group, flex, item center, justify between, width, full, padding 2, rounded MD, text small, hover bg, white /5, like this. And now let's go ahead and wrap this inside of a paragraph. And let's give the paragraph a class name. Actually, not a class name, but what we're going to give it is our dynamic color, right? So you can do that by adding const color to be string to color, and passing the participant name or an empty string like this. So make sure you import the string to color from our previous module, or again, you don't even have to do this. Like, this is just some cool thing that I think it is. So just pass in the matching color, or you can do the color like this. And now what's cool is that the community tab will match the exact identifier, which in our case is the color, with the chat, right? So if the user sends a blue message in the chat, it's going to be blue here in the community as well. Great. And now I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm going to go ahead and define a couple of more constants here. So const is self is going to be if the participant name is equal to the viewer name. And then I'm going to write const is host to be if viewer name is equal to host name. So we have to define whether the person we are looking at here is ourselves, right? So what I'm going to do now is go ahead below this paragraph and check if we are the host, and if the current user in this community tab is not ourselves, in that case, we're going to go ahead and add a little hint here that we can block this user. So let's give it a label block, and inside let's render the button component, which we imported from /components UI button, and let's render the minus circle, which we imported from Lucid React. And let's go ahead and give this a class name of hAuto, width of auto, padding of 1, opacity 0, group-hover, opacity 100. So group hover refers to this group class name in this div. So when we hover on this, this little icon is going to appear on the side, right? So let's go ahead and continue with this. And also let's give it a transition like that. Great. And now, besides the class name, this button will also have on click to be on block, will be handle block, which we don't yet have. So let's go ahead and quickly create it here. So const handle block. If there is no participant name, if we are self, If we are not a host, in any of those cases, return. And otherwise, start transition. Actually, we first have to extract the transition. So is pending and start transition from use transition, which we imported from React. So let's go ahead here and write start transition. And let's go ahead and call our on block and pass in the participant identity. Now let's do .then here and write those.success blocked and just render the participant name. And let me not misspell this, participant name. And let's do .catch toast error, something went wrong, like this. Great. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and add this here. We can go ahead and add a disabled is pending here, and we can also add a different color here while it is pending. So I'm going to write opacity 50% and pointer events are going to be none. So it's going to be pretty clear that we are currently in progress of blocking a user. And right now, you're not going to see this, right? Because we don't show this if we are trying to block ourselves. And this is me, right? These are two instances of me inside of the community tab. So what you can do is you can temporarily just hide this ternary, right? Just so you can see how this looks, but don't click on it, right? Because you're gonna get an error. And there we go. Oh, we actually have to modify. Good thing that we did this. Okay, so let's make sure this looks a little bit better. So I want to go ahead and give this button a variant of ghost like this. And I think now it should look a bit better. And let's also give this minus circle a class name of h4 with 4 and text muted foreground like that. And there we go. Now it looks better. And remember to bring back this ternary here so you can only block a specific type of user. And okay, like this. Great. So now we have this finished. What we have to do now is go back inside of the chat community. And in here, I now want to create the ability to filter and search throughout our participants. So let's go ahead and create const filtered participants to be use memo. So make sure you import use memo from React. We are now in the chat community component. Let's go ahead and pass in the participants and the debounced value as the dependency array. And let's first dedupe our items. So const deduped is going to be participants.reduce, get the accumulator and the participant like this. Let's do const host as viewer. So we're going to add that little prefix here because we are a host which is currently inside of here. So we're going to recognize ourselves because of this prefix that we have, right? If you remember when we created the viewer token, if we are a host, we add this prefix because we cannot have the same identity twice in one stream. So let's go ahead and write participant.identity like that. And now let's do if not accumulator.sum. Whoa. Accumulator.sum. Oh, it says that accumulator.sum does not exist on this method. So let's go ahead and just see why it doesn't exist. I think it's just due to the fact that I haven't finished the function. So let's continue. If not accumulator sum p as participant p.identity is equal to host as viewer accumulator.push participant like that. And then let's just return the accumulator like this. And then let's go ahead and give it a default value of an array. And now that error from above is gone, but we also have to define the types to be as remote participant from LiveKit client. So make sure you import remote participant from LiveKit client or local participant from LiveKit client, and then put an array at the end. And there we go. Now this should not be having any errors. And I'm just going to move this import here. So make sure you have both local participant and remote participant. So that's why we have two of them, because one of them is our local participant and one of them is us as viewer looking at the remote participant. Which in our case is us again, right? So now let's go ahead and do return deduped.filter get the participant and do return participant dot name question mark 2 lowercase includes the bounced value dot to lowercase, like that. So in here we do the actual search, and then we're gonna use let me just zoom out so you can see this in one line, right? So this is the function which we just created, and now we're gonna use these filtered participants in the dot map instead, like this. So let's go ahead and refresh our page now. And now we should be able to search throughout our participants. So make sure you are streaming so that you can see this. And you can see no longer we have any duplicates. And now if I search for Antonio, it says Antonio. But if I search for something else, it says no results. Great. So we finished our community tab. We finished our chat. You can see how fast this is working. And now what I want to do is I want to create a little loading skeleton, right? That's why we created those skeleton items. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So let's go back inside of the original chat component. So inside of the stream player, we have the chat component. And in here, let's go ahead and let's export const chat skeleton. And let's go ahead and return a div with a class name of flex call border left, border bottom, padding top of 0, height, calculate 100 VH minus 80 pixels, and border 2. And let me zoom out so you can see it in one line like that. And then inside, we're going to render the chat header skeleton. We're going to render the chat list skeleton. And it looks like we did not create that one. So we have the chat header skeleton, right, from chat header. But our chat list, didn't we create one? Oh, we call it chat skeleton. It should be chat list skeleton. So inside of your chat list component, make sure that you rename the skeleton to be appropriately named chat list. And then you can import chat list skeleton the same way we added chat header skeleton a second ago. And below that, add chat form skeleton. Great. So make sure that all of those are important, and we don't need one for the community. And now I just want to check if we have a video skeleton. So go inside of video, not live, not loading, just video. And in here, we also have to create a quick skeleton. So let's export const video skeleton here. And let's go ahead and return a div with a class name aspect video, border X, border background. And inside, we are simply going to render a skeleton. So make sure you import that from .ui skeleton or from the components like I'm gonna do now. And in here, just go ahead and give this skeleton a class name of hfull, width full, and rounded none. Like this. And now you can go inside of the index of the stream player component, go all the way to the bottom, and we're gonna go ahead and create export const stream player skeleton. Like this. And go ahead and create a div with a class name, and this is gonna have the following. So grid calls 1, LG grid, gap y 0, LG grid calls 3, XL grid calls 3, 2XL grid calls 6, and H full. And then inside another div with a class name of space y4 call span 1, LG call span 2, XL call span 2, 2XL call span 5, LG call span 5 as well, LG overflow, sorry, the last one is supposed to be 2XL. Okay, I made a mistake. So the LG is the overflow, like this. So the last one is 2XL call span 5. This one is overflow y auto, hidden scroll bar, and padding bottom of 10. And then inside, render the video skeleton component render the header skeleton. We don't have this yet, so I'm gonna add to do header skeleton like this. And then below that, add a div with a class name call span1 and bg background, and render the chat skeleton component from ./chat like this. So make sure you imported the video skeleton and the chat skeleton. And what you can do now is, instead of rendering this while it's loading, you can render stream player skeleton like this. And now if you go ahead and expand, and refresh, you can see how we have a much nicer loading skeleton now. Great, so it's not that weird state now. Perfect. And one more place where we have to add this is inside of where we're actually rendering this. So app folder, dashboard, username, home inside of this page, but we're gonna create loading.tsx here. And let's go ahead and do creator loading, and let's do div class name h-full and render stream player skeleton from components stream player like this. And there we go. Now it is fully supported. As you can see, we also have a special loading state when it is on mobile, and it also collapses when it's on desktop. Perfect. So we have a nice little skeleton here. We can expand, we can collapse, we can search the community, we can ban users, we can chat here. And what we have to do now is create a little header here so that we can follow the user, right? Great job. So what I want to build now is the little header component here, which will have the follow button, the name of the current streamer, and also all active participants that are currently watching the stream. So for that, I want to go back inside of my stream player component. So let's get inside of stream player and let's find index.tsx. And in here, inside of the LiveKit room, because we're going to need to use context from LiveKit room in order to get the proper number of participants, the connected status, and all of those hooks that we used, throughout our video and our chat component and all of those things. So below the video component, add a header component. And right now it doesn't exist, but I already want to prepare some props. So pass in the host name, which is going to be user.username. Go ahead and pass in the host identity, which is going to be user.id. Viewer identity, which is going to be identity which we have stored from this hook, use viewer token, right? This is where we have that. Let's also pass in the image URL of the user. So that's going to be user.image URL. And let's do is following to be the is following prop. And name is going to be stream.name, like that. Great, so now that we have this, let's go ahead inside of the stream player and let's create header.tsx like this. Let's mark this as use client and let's export const header and return a div header component. And now go back inside of the stream player index and you can import header from ./header as we did with our chat, video, and chat toggle. And let me just assign this here. Like this. So now let's go ahead and fix this little TypeScript error that we have because of these props here. So inside of our header component, we're going to create an interface header props like that. And let's go ahead and assign everything we need. So we need the image URL, which is a string, host name, which is a string, host identity. We need the viewer identity. So all of these things are strings, and now we have is following, which is a boolean, and we need the name of the stream, which is a string. And now we can go ahead and assign those props, so header props here, and we can go ahead and extract the image URL, host name, host identity, viewer identity, and is following. Like this. Great. And now what I want to do is go ahead and start to render this component. So let's give this div a class name of flex call1 lg flex row gap y4 LG gap Y 0. So we are doing some responsive stuff here, right? On large devices, all of this is going to be in a row next to each other, but on mobile devices, it's going to use flex call, right? And this should just be flex call, not flex call 1. My apologies, like that. And this should have a dash next to it, like this. And then let's do items start, justify between, and px4, like that. Now inside, I'm gonna go ahead and write a class name here, flex items center and gap x3. And now let's reuse our user avatar component, which we have from /user avatar, but I'm gonna change it to gum from /components, like this. And now we can go ahead and pass everything we need from this. So we're gonna give it the image URL, which is image URL. We're gonna pass in the username, which is the host name. We're gonna need the size, and this time it's gonna be large. And you can already see it appearing right here. And now we're gonna have to pass is live prop, and let's see if we have the is live prop. It looks like we don't have is live. Well, we're gonna create the is live prop from our hooks from LiveKit, because remember, we are doing the header component inside of the LiveKit room component, meaning that we have access to all the participants, connection state, our stream, everything. So for now, I'm going to hard code this to true, so you can see how this looks now. And let's also add the show badge property, because since this is a large type of avatar, it's gonna look better. You can see it right here, how it looks. Perfect. So we have this streams user and the badge, right? And we hard coded is live to true. So we're gonna leave it like this for now. And then below that, I wanna open up a div with a class name space y1, and then another div with a class name flex items center and gap x2. So it's going to hold multiple items inside. And the first one is going to be an h2 element, which is simply going to render the host name. And a class name is going to have text large and font semi-bold, like this. And then below that, we're going to add the verified mark. So I want to create a little component for that so we can reuse it wherever we need. So inside of your components folder, create a new file, verified mark.tsx, like this. And let's go ahead and import check from Lucid React. And let's export const verified mark. And let's return a div which renders that check icon. And I already want to use that. So go inside of header. And what I want you to do is below this